Hello, hello. Pulling up the game right away. What did we leave off at? All right, Shion's talking about how she told the mayor that she went into the building, and he's like, I'll take care of it. And now he's remembering Rika said she'll take care of it. So he's trying to call Rika. After hanging up on Shion, I searched for Rika-chan's phone number on my school's contact list. There it is. My fingers trembled with urgency, and I failed multiple times to put in the simple 5-digit number. 5 digits? Really? Wow. Keiichi, are you calling someone at this hour? It's late, and it's being rude to the other person. That doesn't matter right now. I shouted angrily at my mother, listening to the dial tone. Pick up. Come on. Pick up. What? The time was 11 p.m. It certainly wasn't early. It was essentially the middle of the night. That's my bedtime. Had Rika-chan already gone to bed? Her phone would be ringing constantly, though, so would she get back up for me? Rika-chan didn't pick up. She didn't pick up. She didn't pick up. Maybe she just happened to miss it. Maybe her bed was just too far away from the phone. The sound of a phone ringing gets clearer and clearer the longer you go on sleeping. Then, the bathroom? Yeah, she must be taking a bath. At 11 p.m. If that was the case, then even if she heard the phone, she wouldn't be able to go pick it up. It was a little late to be taking a bath, but it was possible she normally took baths right before going to bed. I'll wait 30 minutes, then try calling again. Even as I was thinking that, I called her house over and over again. I kept calling. Over and over. Again and again. I kept on calling her, but she didn't pick up even once. I think I kept trying for about 30 minutes. Yet, she wasn't picking up. Were my phone calls so persistent that she had gotten scared of picking up the receiver? No, that couldn't be possibly be it. There was no point in doing this any longer. The best thing to do would be go in there in person. Where was Rika-chan's house, though? Shit, I've never even asked her where she lived. Her residence was written there in the contact list, but it was an address with mostly numbers, so I couldn't tell where it was just by reading it. Isn't there a map or something in here? Rika Furude. Her last name was Furude. It was a bit of an odd last name, so it might be easy to find. Thinking that, I rummaged around the drawer with the phone book, but could only find things like takeout menus and phone numbers for public establishments. Shit, shit, shit. I tore one thing after another out of the drawer, but I didn't come up with any clues as to where Rika-chan's house was. Calm down, Keiichi Maibara. If you don't know, then just ask. Ask someone who does know. Ah, that's it. Rena's gotta know. I looked up Rena's phone number on the contact list. Rena Ryugu. There she was. But then she'll ask, why are you trying to get to her at midnight? Hello? This is Ryugu. It was the voice of a grumpy sounding man. It must have been Rena's father. I am calling in the middle of the night. I need to be polite. I'm sorry for calling so late at night. This is Maibara. Is there any chance Rena-san is around? Reina is taking a bath. Oh, she's done? Reina, there's a friend of yours on the phone. Oh, right. Reina Ryugu was her real name, wasn't it? I'd gotten so used to calling her Rena that hearing her real name caught me a little off guard. Hello? This is Rena. Ah, it's me, Keiichi. Sorry for calling so late. Huh? Keiichi-kun? What do you need at a time like this? Like this? Well, actually, I wanted to know where Rika-chan's house is. Rena seemed a little appalled that I'd call her for something like that at this hour. However, she spoke her next words seriously, as if she'd caught on how urgent my need was. Okay, sure. You know the assembly hall on the grounds of the Furude Shrine? There's a two-story shack used for storage behind it. That's where she lives. I couldn't immediately visualize the place, but as long as I knew she lived on the shrine grounds, I'd just have to take a look around. Got it. Thanks. Sorry again for calling so late. Apologize to your dad for me too, would you? Okay, but Keiichi-kun, why do you want to know where Rika-chan lives? Rena asked in an unusually sharp way, halting me before I could hang up the phone. I hesitated for a moment about whether to tell her. He was killed because I told him. Keiichi-kun, if you're still listening, could you answer me? Why are you asking where Rika-chan lives at a time like this? Rena affected her usual tone, but beneath her words lay a certain tension, like she'd intuitively sensed something was going on. What will you do, Keiichi? If it's Rena, can't I tell her? He was killed because he found out. I revealed everything, so he was killed. Keiichi-kun? Rena's being serious. Please, answer me. Rena asked me once again in a tone so forceful I couldn't imagine her ever using it normally. I was taken aback by her vigor. Rena was Rika-chan's friend, too. I just remembered... There we go. She had the right to be concerned about Rika-chan disappearing. If I told Rena, then, even if only for a moment, I could drive away my horrifying fears. Rena, well, I can't exactly tell you why, but yes? Rena's tone was seriousness itself. Just from that tone, I could feel her saying, no matter what you say, Keiichi-kun, I'll believe you. That subtle sense of security gave me the courage to reveal the truth. I have a feeling that Rika-chan is in danger. You mean like a premonition? Or do you have some reason to believe she's in danger? I really didn't have time to go back and forth with Rena about this. Still, I think listening to her calm voice soothed my pointless impatience. I don't have much reason, but... yeah, I still hesitated. I had told Rika-chan that we had snuck into the ritual storehouse. The mayor, to whom Shion had confessed before that, had already disappeared. So, it was possible that Rika-chan also. I didn't know how to explain it to Rena. While I was tongue-tied, Rena spoke up. Sorry for asking something so weird. I thought about it, and it isn't like you to need to be sure. Rena laughed a little, seeming a bit absent-minded. I wasn't exactly in the mood to laugh, so this time I was dumbfounded. Rena continued in a cheerful, yet still purposeful voice. You're worried about a friend. I don't think you need a reason to go and check on them. Even if Rika-chan was asleep and you ended up waking her up, if that was why you did it, then none of us would get mad. Rena, thank you. Okay then, Keiichi-kun, just one thing. You called Rika-chan's house, right? Then you just couldn't get through, so that's why you asked me where her house is? Yeah, that's right. I must have called her for over 10 minutes. She could just be sleeping and not have noticed. Rika-chan's house is really small. She would definitely hear the phone ringing even if she was asleep. Satsuko-chan's there too, so there's no way neither of them would notice. Huh? Satsuko, you mean she's living with Rika-chan? Yeah. You didn't know? Well, we can talk about that later. Anyway, if you called that much and no one answered, then something's definitely wrong. Rena understood that the situation wasn't normal far faster than I could have ever imagined her to. It made her seem dependable. However, the fact that Rena had acknowledged this also meant that the best-case possibility of it all just being the result of my own needless fears went out the window. I'll go to Rika-chan's house right now. Will you come with me? I can show you the way. Sounds good. Let's meet up at the same place as usual. I'll be waiting for you. No, wait. I'll come get you at your house. You just wait there, and tell your family you're coming with me to Rika-chan's house, okay? Will that be okay? We might lose time if you come here. Did you call Mi-chan too? She's really dependable at times like these. If you haven't, then I'll give her a call. My thoughts froze for a moment. Shion had just told me to be careful around Mion during our phone conversation a little while ago. If the Sonozaki main house was somehow lurking behind the surface of the annual freak deaths, then the current heir to the family, Mion, wouldn't be uninvolved. So, wouldn't that mean she wasn't uninvolved in what happened this year to Takano-san and Tomitake-san, and also the mayor's disappearance? Okay, bye. I'll be right over. Wait for me. That's all Rena said before hurriedly hanging up. Now wasn't the time to be doubting Mion. I needed to make sure Rika-chan was safe. I got changed and grabbed the key to my bike. I figured things would go more smoothly if we met up in the place we usually do before school. Rena wouldn't need to come all the way to my house. My parents would probably have objected if I told them I was leaving, so I creeped out without a word. The night was unusually warm and disagreeably humid. She said that Rika-chan and Satoko lived together, right? Hmm? Then it wasn't only Rika-chan. Satoko wasn't there either? Realizing what them living together really meant caused my thoughts to immediately take a turn for the worse. That can't be. Satoko is... She's got nothing to do with any of this. Even if there were a reason for Rika-chan to disappear, there shouldn't be one for Satoko. Keiichi-kun! Rena was really fast. She approached me on her bike at an amazing speed. Her breath was ragged, painting a clear picture of just how hurriedly she had been going. Hey, Rena, let's get going. Keiichi-kun, I thought I told you to wait at your house. Rena's expression was all business. Was she mad? It came out of the blue, and I faltered for a moment. Well, I just figured it would be faster to meet up here. Keiichi-kun, don't you get it? Rena shouted, clearly angry. I had never seen Rena like this before. Do I get it? What's the problem? Rena seemed to notice she was scaring me, took a couple of deep breaths, then continued as if admonishing me, but her expression didn't soften at all. Keiichi-kun, the whole village is in an uproar right now that the elder disappeared, right? Yeah? Now you're telling me that Rika-chan and Satoko-chan aren't where they're supposed to be, right? Yeah. That about sums it up. Then you need to be more careful. Do you have any idea how dangerous it is to be standing out here alone in the middle of the night? I began to understand where Rena's anger was coming from. But here she is, driving all the way to my house, alone in the middle of the night. You told your family you'd be going to Rika-chan's house with me, didn't you? So that in the worst case scenario, if you and I were to disappear, people would know when and where we did. That'd be where, were, not did. Rena was perfectly level-headed in this emergency situation. Ever since the night of Watanagashi, every night someone had died or disappeared. On the night itself, Takano-san and Tomitake-san met strange ends. On the next night, the elder vanished. Now, on the next night after that, Rika-chan and Satoko were nowhere to be found. I hadn't been thinking of anyone but myself, but it wasn't enough to say that Hinamizawa was a little weird at the moment. It was, in fact, extremely strange. Rena had even anticipated our own disappearances, and had told me to tell my family where I was going. I was embarrassed at my own carelessness, and the need to be embarrassed made me afraid of the night. Sorry, I didn't tell them yet. Okay, then let's go tell them together. With Rena beside me, I wheeled back towards my house. The moon seemed strangely high in the sky. I love full moons. A sky that was uselessly vast and cold, so that no matter what, it would never seem to me like a dream, this cruel fact that had already confronted me. On such a crazy night, Rena had been unimaginably dependable. Hinamizawa's metamorphosis, enough to make Rena caution me against carelessness, was to me the most fearsome thing of all. The moon seemed strangely high in the sky. We met up with Mion on the way, and she, of course, was unsure whether to believe me about Rika-chan and Satoko's disappearance. Kei-chan, are you serious? I'm going to get really mad if this is a joke. Mion was clearly displeased. If this were a joke, it wasn't very funny. I understood how indiscreet my words were. Ever since the day before yesterday, someone had either died or vanished every night. Rika-chan and Satoko disappearing after all that was something you just couldn't say, even in jest. Mi-chan, if it really is a joke, don't get mad. Smile. It would be a joke after all. We need to go make sure whether it's a joke or not. You're right. Sorry for getting upset. However indiscreet a joke it may have been, if we learned that our friends were safe, it would end up as nothing more than a fun story. Having been warned about that by Rena, Mion gave a dry smile, the tension she felt loosening a bit. She mounted her bicycle as well. Our 3 bicycles' lights flashed down the pitch-black roads. They were some of the only illumination outside. Kei-chan, why did you suddenly decide to call and ask about Rika-chan's house at a time like this? Mion asked me the same thing that I had trouble explaining to Rena. Would it be weird to call it a premonition? I couldn't quite tell because it was dark, but I thought I could see Mion smiling very ambiguously. I definitely understood that she wasn't convinced, though, despite the darkness. Well, I had this bad dream while I was snoozing. I couldn't get it out of my head. So, did Rika-chan get kidnapped in the dream? Well, it was more of a vague feeling, sort of thing. If Rika-chan had answered the phone, I would have called you and Rena after that. You would have? Hmm? Lies smoothly babbled out of my mouth, makeshift though they were. I was lying because I thought telling them I was connected to Shion would be like silently admitting we had stolen into the ritual storehouse together that night. Games in the foreground. Mion didn't press me any further. I don't know whether that convinced her. Or maybe she figured that making sure Rika-chan and Satoko were safe would be faster than making an issue out of it. I felt relieved, and immediately a little guilty. Mion hadn't really been acting any differently these last few days, but I'm still trying to distance myself from her for some reason. It was only because of what I heard from Shion and Oishi-san, that she was the successor to some kind of super extravagant gang family. No. Was I just trying to force myself to forget? Don't do that, Keiichi Maeba. Wasn't it Mion who was the first to ask about the night of Watanagashi? In such a harsh tone at that? Have I already forgotten the terror I felt? At the time, Mion looked like someone different from the Mion I knew. When I think about that Mion, and then Shion, and Oishi-san's descriptions of Mion made a tiny bit more sense. That's it, isn't it? If it wasn't for how she acted that day, I wouldn't be feeling this way towards her now. What on earth was going on with her back then? I was conveniently thinking only of everything she had done after that. One thing about this writing is all these ellipses, I feel like don't belong in English. I'm sure they're there in the Japanese, but it's just so hard to read properly. Yeah, it's literally there in exactly the same spots. We only use that when we're like pausing for a long time. And that's why I'm reading it like that. It reads terribly. I was conveniently thinking only of everything she had done after that. Yes, please move. Ah. While disregarding the very first thing, the thing I should have been looking at most, wasn't I? Mion was pedaling her bicycle in front of me, her long hair fluttering in the wind. No matter how long I looked at her back, it never gave me answers to any of my questions. We went all the way to the stone steps leading up to the shrine grounds. Of course, we weren't going to want to haul our bikes up there, so we parked them beside the staircase instead. So this is the Furude Shrine. Yes, the place I've already been to. Everybody comes and goes as they please, as if it were a park, but this place is actually a grand estate owned by the Furude family. So the entire shrine is private property. It really makes you feel the passage of time. 10 or 20 years ago, it would have looked the exact same. Then wouldn't that mean that the Furude family is really old, with a history going back for generations? Yeah, they're gone. That's odd. Rena said something clearly disquieting, so I ran over to her. What's wrong, Rena? Rika-chan and Satoko-chan always leave their bicycles here. See? They're gone. I took a look around. Indeed, there were no other bicycles aside from the ones we'd taken to get here. Couldn't they have parked them somewhere else? Could they have brought them up the stairs? Those girls couldn't do that, Keiichi-kun. Just as she said, I couldn't imagine Rika-chan and Satoko lugging their bikes all the way up there. We hadn't yet knocked on Rika-chan's door, but reality was already sparking some ideas that weren't what you'd call good. Maybe they were just parked under some trees and we hadn't noticed them. I refused to believe that not being able to find their bikes here was proof that they'd disappeared. Let's go. The only way to be sure is to check their house. We all nodded and dashed up the stone steps. We passed through the red arc and came out onto the shrine grounds, which was covered in neat gravel. It was so quiet here, as though the Watanashi festival had never happened. So, where's the house they live in? Over here. Come with me. Rena took the lead and sprinted off. We went towards the assembly hall behind the shrine, then looped around behind it. In the darkness of the night, we found a small, prefab two-story shack that looked like a warehouse. The lights are off. Are they sleeping? Let's knock. Rena and Mion neared the shack, which didn't really look like a place people would live. They had such a beautiful shrine, so I'd figured they'd live in an equally beautiful house. It was far from what I had expected. Rika-chan! Satsuko-chan! Are you there? Rena shouted up towards the second floor. Her voice was restrained at first, but it steadily grew louder. No answer. In fact, there wasn't any sort of activity in the house at all. They might be sleeping. Let's wake them up. Mion banged on the shutter with both hands, and the loud sounds echoed into our surroundings. They would have to notice this much noise. They would turn on the light in their room, fling open the windows, and yell, "What time do you think it is?" That, however, wasn't happening. There was absolutely no response. Mion stopped slamming her fists on the shutter, and a sudden silence fell over us. The silence aroused terrible thoughts in us. I could feel the blood draining from my face. It's locked. I wonder if we can get into somehow. Rena showed no signs of stopping. It didn't look like she would admit they weren't there until we went inside and saw for ourselves. That refusal to give in gave me strength. The second-story windows wouldn't be locked. I'll give them a try. Kei-chan, a ladder. Mion brought over a ladder that was standing against the house. The footing was a little unstable for me to be climbing it, but Mion held the ladder firmly in place for me. I hadn't climbed too many ladders. My inexperience with them exposed, I climbed up one step at a time and tried to open each window on the second floor. Mi-chan, I'm going to go check the main house just to be sure, okay? I'll be right back. Rena darted away. What? A main house? It's the Furede family's actual house. After her parents passed away, I think it's been left like that. Ah, right. Rika-chan's parents, they passed away, huh? At that point, I recalled something else. Wasn't Satsuko living here too? Satsuko is also an orphan. Her parents fell from a cliff because of Oishiro-sama's curse. Then her older brother, Satsuki-kun, he disappeared. Satsuki, I've heard that name before. I remembered. He was the one who disappeared last year because of the curse. Ever since then, Satsuko and Rika-chan have been living in this shack. Neither of them has any family, but at least they are together. They help each other out. Rena said main house, didn't she? Wouldn't it be easier to live there? The curtains were drawn, so I couldn't get a good look inside to see, but two young girls living together seemed like a pretty tough life. I think she tried that at first. She said it was hard, though, because it reminded her of her parents. I had no idea. I feel really bad for them. They were normally so cheerful at school that I never even realized an atom of this. Rika-chan and Satsuko-chan, they have it hard, huh? She's cursed. Huh? Suddenly, Mion said something in such a low voice that it sounded like she was really cursing someone, and I didn't let it slide. I turned around on the ladder to face her and asked again. Mion, what did you just say? I said, she's cursed. Mion, still holding onto the ladder, brought her head up to look me in the eyes. As soon as our eyes met, an absolute zero jolt of electricity surged through my body. Mion's eyes clouded over, and within them boiled and bubbled a stew of chaos. They whirled around and around like a raging sea, and bubbles floated to the surface. I had at some point been trapped on this ladder, like being cornered on a dead-end street. Mion, why are you making that face? I intended to follow it up with, "You're going too far with this joke," and give her a forced smile. However, on such uneven footing as I was, the only thing that came out of my mouth was a hoarse groan, as I desperately struggled to not let nausea overwhelm me. "Satsuko Hojo. She's been cursed by Oishiro-sama." Mion answers with a response to something I never asked, as if replying to someone else's question. The only people who fell from the park observation platform were her parents. Only her parents, who treated her like dirt, died that day. She was the only one to survive. Then she was sent to live with her aunt, who treated her cruelly, and the aunt was killed on the night of Watanashi by some deviant who beat her to death so violently her brains were everywhere and her head an entirely different shape by the end of it. Then Satoshi-kun, who always protected her, he suddenly disappeared on her birthday. Someone made him disappear, even though he wasn't abusing her. The police judged him to have run away from home, but Satoshi-kun wasn't the kind of person who would do that. He was always earnest. He would never ask for anyone else's help. He would always drag himself through everything with hard work alone. He worked so hard he nearly ground his bones into dust, all for his one and only little sister, and yet someone made him disappear. She was the only thing he lived for, and yet someone made him disappear. Poor, poor Satoshi-kun. He was never rewarded, that Satoshi-kun. How ungrateful that child is. She's cursed. All who get near her suffer the same fate. The curse kills them, or the curse makes them disappear. She cannot have any relief. She cannot have any relief. It's probably Satoko's fault that Rikichan disappeared too. It has to be it. It has to be it. 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 Has to. Has to. Has to. Has to. Man was mumbling words over and over that were no longer coherent. Her shoulders were trembling so hard that I could feel it through the ladder. I almost lost my footing, which made me realize just how far away the ground really was. Calm down, Mion. I don't know what you're talking about." I wasn't sure if she even heard me. Mion rocked back and forth, and that rocking and trembling was becoming even more violent. "Help me. The ladder. It's fallen. Help me. Help." Just then, I heard the sound of many people running towards us. "Oh, oh, hey! Over here!" I very nearly said "help me" outright. 4 or 5 adults, led by Rena, ran over here with flashlights. "Keiichi-kun, Michan, sorry it took so long. I borrowed the key." "Oh, nice one. Seems all the windows and locked doors are perfectly sealed. I was getting worried." When I heard Mion talking like nothing had just happened, I again felt a chill run through me. The person currently holding the ladder in place, it was definitely Mion. It was the real Mion Sonozaki. Then, the person muttering to themselves, just a few seconds ago. Who was that? The person who was mumbling that terrible things like curses, who was that? I jumped down from the ladder as if running away, before Mion turned into that person who wasn't Mion a second time. The adults tried a few different keys on a keyring as they tried to open the big shutter on the first floor. Rikichan's house used to be a disaster shelter for the town council, so the key to the shutter is still kept in the mayor's house. It's Rikichan Sato's private residence now, though. Well, this is on Rikichan's property anyway. Nobody complains about it. Mion gave me a smile as she said that. I, however, could only return her gaze with an aghast expression. Mion was acting all too normal now, but that only contrasted all the more sharply with her earlier, un-Mion-like creepiness. Bang, bang. Clatter, 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 bang. The shutter opened for the first time in a very long while. Rena located the light switch and wasted no time going inside. I followed her in. "Riki-chan! Satoko-chan! If you're here, say something!" We climbed a narrow staircase. It had looked like nothing more than a warehouse, but now that I was inside, I could feel how lived in it was. It was a person's home. Somehow the scent of the two of them filled the place. This was definitely where Riki-chan and Satoko lived. I could smell their scent. The first floor doubled as a town assembly warehouse, but the second floor was a space entirely for living. Just like a one-room apartment, past the kitchen was the living room taking up about 150 square feet. Dressers, cupboards, and the like were packed into the space, and in the corner there was a huge pile of clothes that appeared to have just been taken in from drying outside. In the center of the living room was a fold-up table, and on it were small containers for things like soy sauce and salad dressings. The sense of a frugal lifestyle drifted from all of it. It was strange that they weren't here in the middle of the night like this. The adults, climbing the stairs one at a time, began to make a fuss and talk amongst themselves. So? Not here? Yeah, they're not here. This is definitely weird. The village had just been thrown into chaos yesterday because of the mayor's disappearance. Then today, even Riki-chan and Satoko had. Were they out playing somewhere together? That can't be. Their bicycles aren't here, though. Where would they have gone so late at night? Have they just not come back yet? Where'd they go? The adults put forth various possibilities, and the house immediately devolved into a state of confusion. Eventually, Mion settled them down. I don't want to believe it, but the mayor, Kimiyoshi, disappeared yesterday. We can't say that this is unrelated. The adults' faces paled at Mion's declaration. Mine and Rena's did as well. Let's see. They could have gone nearby for some tea or something, then accidentally fallen asleep. Whoever invited them might just not be able to wake them up at all, too. Let's eliminate that possibility first. Makino-san, please go around to the houses near the stream. Keitaro-san, go look near Ojaga Lake. Okamura-san, you? Mion promptly gave directions to the villagers. The adults followed them without hesitation, despite her age. We'll remain here and call up anyone we can think of on the phone. Okay, everyone, you have your orders. Got it. The adults all roared in reply and pounded down the stairs below. Wow, Michan. You're not only chairperson of the school, but Hinamizawa too. No time for jokes. Hey, step aside. This old man is using the phone. Mion grinned proudly, took the receiver, and got started. Rena gave Mion a trusting look, considering her dependable for doing all of this. My feelings, though, were a little more complicated, since her leadership seemed to be affirming the Sonozaki family successor impression that Shion and Oishi had given me. Stop right there, Keiichi Maibara. None of that matters right now. The most important thing is to make sure Riki-chan and Satoko are safe. Let's see, couldn't there be a clue hinting at where they might have gone somewhere in this room? Still, though, I wouldn't know what to look for anyway. If we tore the whole place apart and figured out what was different from before, we might be able to speculate, but there was nothing strange about this room, and there were no clues in sight. In the first place, I had never been here before. There was no way for me to know what was different if I didn't know how the room usually looked. Hey, don't give up, Keiichi Maibara. Stop thinking and start looking. For something. In search of something, I tried pulling open the dresser drawers and open the windows. I didn't uncover anything meaningful, though. Rena, also unable to stand around doing nothing, was looking around the room like I was. Rena, I don't think you'll find Riki-chan by opening the refrigerator or the cabinet underneath the sink. That's how you find clues, though. I just thought they might be hiding. How? As we were searching, it got noisy outside. Villagers were quickly assembling here, having heard the commotion. Of course, a lot of them were probably people Mion had called. I'll go tell everyone what's going on. The police will be here sooner or later, too. We'll need to explain the situation to Oishi. Mion began descending the stairs, and we followed her out to the front of the house. There were already around 10 adults there, and all of them looked uneasy. I suddenly noticed that the old people from the shrine were here as well, and they were praying for Riki-chan's safety, rubbing their prayer beads. This had gotten bad. This wasn't just a problem between friends anymore. Mion-chan, is it true that Riki-chan and Satoko-chan aren't anywhere to be found? The villagers all formed a ring around Mion, swarming her. Mion raised her right hand as if silently telling them to calm down. First, let's check every house according to the town council's notification division and see if they're visiting anyone. After all, they could be fast asleep at someone's house and totally unaware that we're looking for them. It would definitely be hard for someone to wake up Riki-chan if she had eaten a good full meal and fallen asleep like a kitten afterwards. Oh, how nice it would be if that were the case. I don't want to think about this, but it's also possible something bad has happened. Mion's face grew remarkably more grim, and a wave of silence washed over the adults. We should divide up the work, too. We'll go around to all the places we went last night while looking for the mayor. We'll go look around the damn construction site as best we can. You guys go search around the school. Right. Let's get a move on. Come on, let's go. All of you were up all night looking for the mayor. I know you're all low on sleep, but please do your best. Got it. With that as their signal, the adults scattered in every direction. I figured I should scatter somewhere as well, so I started walking unsteadily in a direction no one else had gone in. I was getting farther and farther from people. I didn't feel scared or anything, though. If someone were to make me made to disappear, Shion and I should be first. It would have been perfectly normal for me to be scared of the dark. However, I didn't feel that way. Why was that? It was because tonight, someone had already disappeared, so nobody else would disappear tonight. It would take some time before I, exhausted as I was, would feel guilt at the cause of my own selfish sense of relief. But why does he assume no one else would disappear tonight? The first night 2 people were killed, so why can't 2 people vanish? Actually, 2 people did vanish, so... I explained my own point perfectly. Suddenly, my vision cleared, and a cold wind caressed my body. This was the hill from which you could see the whole village. Looking down from this hill, I could see lights on here and there, and knew that the entire village had awoken from its slumber. First Takuma-san and Tomitaki-san, then the mayor, and now even Rika-chan and Satoko had been sacrificed, and word of it was spreading everywhere. The strength in my knees left me. This could no longer be a joke. We could have found them. Mion would have told me I was a worrywart. Rena would just be glad we did, and they would have smiled at me. My hopes disappeared as if I were awakening from a dream. That was what the view I could see was telling me. Following my knees, my arms both bent forward onto the ground, and I clawed at it with my nails. My poor throat. I couldn't figure out if I was feeling sorrow or frustration. Ugh, is this my fault? I couldn't endure the burden of my own sin, and I had just told Rika-chan about it. They had nothing to do with it, but Rika-chan and even Satoko had been sacrificed. It was like a cross that Shion and I would each have to bear the weight of until we ourselves were erased. Well, if I'm going that far, then the problem started long before that. My original sin of breaking taboo and entering the ritual storehouse without asking. I knew I shouldn't have gone in there from the start, yet I lost out to cheap curiosity. I hadn't felt so angry at myself until this very moment. There was a crunching sound. I wasn't even interested in who made that noise, despondent as I was. Keiichi-kun? Keiichi-kun, are you okay? It was Rena. Past my clawing at the ground made it look as though I was having stomach pains. She ran over and rubbed my back, like she was trying to make me feel better. This is all my fault. It's because of me. It's my fault. Keiichi-kun's fault? You didn't do anything wrong. Please don't blame yourself for this. I could tell Rena was doing her best to choose the right words out of consideration for me. That's why I could sense her intent behind those words. Keiichi-kun, you know why Rika-chan and Satoko-chan disappeared, don't you? Is what she really meant to say. Because it was an emergency, Rena had ignored the reason why I wanted to make sure Rika-chan was safe, but now that we had actually confirmed her disappearance, it was only natural Rena would start to wonder about why. However, with the situation having gone this far, I couldn't possibly tell her now. I didn't want to admit that Rika-chan and Satoko had disappeared, but I couldn't let Rena disappear either. Keiichi-kun, if you stay out here in the wind, you'll catch a cold. Rena sat down, bringing her eyes level with mine. They told us that children should go back home to sleep. Rena showed me her watch as she said that. It was long past 1 in the morning. Time was passing too quickly. Had I been crawling around here for that long? If we don't sleep soon, we'll have trouble getting up for school tomorrow. Even the adults are really worn out, since they were up searching for the mayor last night too. They were saying they'd break up a little earlier tonight. I was a little upset that they weren't allotting as much time to this as they had to search for the mayor last night, But that was something I, the cause of everything, had no right to criticize them for. Man, this music is going hard. It's alright. The police arrived a little while ago. Look, there's police cars coming into the village right now. Hearing that remark, I looked down at the village to see that there were indeed more cars than one would normally expect at this hour, coming from the darkness on the other side of the mountain. However, none of their emergency lights were on. Of course, their sirens weren't wailing either. That's right. All of the incidents that occurred right after Watanagashi were seen as the product of Oyashiro-sama's curse, and would be handled in secrecy. Riki-chan and Satoko, too. Their disappearance would end up exactly like the other serial incidents in the past. Surreptitious, unresolved, declared a mystery, and disappear from memory. Riki-chan's face, her sweet face like a Western doll's, would fade away. Satoko's smile, her energetic, fanged smile, would fade away. The more I tried to remember them, the less I would be able to. I deserved to be called an idiot dozens of times over, and it wouldn't be enough. I couldn't hold back the tears at my own sheer stupidity. I don't know what you're blaming yourself for, Keiichi-kun, but you should stop. I wasn't about to deny it. I couldn't. Even so, I couldn't affirm it either. I wanted to at least keep Rena out of this. If she found out, she would become involved. Please, Rena. Could you just leave me alone? Even if I went home, I wouldn't be able to sleep. If I couldn't get to sleep, then I at least wanted to search for Riki-chan and Satoko until I collapsed. The entire village was looking, yet they still hadn't been found. I don't think I'd be able to find them if I went looking alone at this point. Still, I had to do it. They disappeared because of me. I couldn't possibly go to sleep while other people are out there searching. I had said that to myself in self-deprecation, but I soon realized that Rena was silently trying to find the meaning in my mumblings. I realized I had misspoke. It's Keiichi-kun's fault? Why do you think that? Why? That can't be. Keiichi-kun, you're not at fault. I was happy that Rena said these things to me, but she only did so because she didn't know the truth. If she knew that everything had been caused by my breaking taboo on the night of the Watanagashi, then even Rena would curse my existence. However, I can't even allow for those curses. That would mean confessing my own crimes to Rena. If I spilled even one word of having snuck into the ritual storehouse on the night of Watanagashi, then even Rena could disappear tomorrow night. The gentle, spirited, always joking, always howling by a time like this, the most dependable person in the world, Rena might disappear. I don't want that. Anything but that. This time, I need to bear my own cross. Alone. Keiichi-kun, I know that you always have your friends in your heart. I can really understand feeling like you want to kick yourself. Rena knows, though, that it's not Keiichi-kun's fault. You didn't do anything wrong, Keiichi-kun, and I know that. You know that? The shivering in my veins rushed up my back and replaced the sorrow in my heart with fear. I didn't tell her anything, did I? Maybe I accidentally said something that caused Rena to figure it out? This is bad. Now Rena will disappear. Rena will disappear. Rena will disappear. Then Rena, the same way I always did, grabbed my head and began to pet it roughly. Keiichi-kun, are you thinking that Rena might disappear now too? Because of Oyashiro-sama's curse? She puts more force into the hand rubbing my head. You don't need to worry about that. Rena isn't going anywhere. I promise. Why? How can you say that? With such confidence? I mean, someone's been sacrificed every night so far. There was no proof that wouldn't happen again tomorrow night. There was even less proof, after all, that the sacrifice wouldn't be Rena. I don't care who you are. Just please, if you're going to erase someone, erase me first. Please, stop cruelly getting rid of people we're close to, like the mayor for Shion and Riki-chan and Satoko for me. Shion's hysterical shouting came back to mind. They must be planning to kill us last of all. They're not killing the first people who came to mind. They start by killing those we're close to. And then after they've caused us so much pain, they'll kill us. That must be what they're doing. But, Rena, please, don't disappear. Please don't, as long as I'm still here. I can no longer conceal the sobs welling up within me. Come on, Keiichi-kun. Crying doesn't suit you. Let's go back to the others. The housewives are cooking some miso soup for us. It'll warm you up and calm you down. Rena prompted me to stand. I didn't have the energy to oppose her, so I stood as she urged me to. We returned to the shrine grounds to find several gas stoves there with miso soup in big pots. The many villagers there sipped at the soup they were given in dead, stony silence. Their expressions were absolutely exhausted. Everyone had just been running around the village until a little while ago. From the dreary looks on their faces, though, I assumed they hadn't come up with anything yet. Kei-chan, where did you go? I was worried you disappeared too. Sorry. Mion held out some miso soup for me, but I refused to offer. I didn't have much of an appetite. Mi-chan, how is it? Did you find any clues? Mion took a sip of her soup, her expression frank. None at all. School ended and they went home. Then the two of them went somewhere on their bicycles. Moreover, nobody ever saw them riding their bikes, so... When it gets dark out in Hinamizawa, people quickly vanish from the streets. Aside from adults hurrying back home from town in cars or on bicycles, it was normal to see absolutely nobody walking around outside. It wasn't at all strange that nobody had seen Rika-chan and Satoko riding their bikes. It was the same last night with the mayor. There's no hope. If Mion's apathetic tone pricked my nerves, but that anger quickly subsided. She had been doing all sorts of things to try and find Rika-chan until just a second ago. If I asked her, she'd probably say she was up all night last night too, looking for the mayor, wouldn't she? She must have been far more fatigued than I was. Besides, what about me? I had spent the time hunched over in indecision all alone. I had no right to say anything about Mion. Kei-chan, I know it's hard, but let's turn in for the night. We just decided we should break up the search for now. Drink this and let's call it quits. Is this the end? Oh, no, of course not. Once it's bright out again, we'll do a thorough search with the police's help. They could have gone to Okonomiya, too. People are even saying we should go through all of Shishiboni City investigating whether there are any witnesses for both the girls and the mayor. Anyway, what happened, Kei-chan? Where did you go off to? You vanished all of a sudden. I was really worried. Suddenly I was on the receiving end, but I didn't have the willpower to respond. Sorry, I'll be more careful. Nothing happened? There wasn't anyone suspicious spying on or stalking you? Nothing like that? Mion demanded with a serious expression. I was being criticized for how inconsiderate I had been. Despite being in so much pain, I was frustrated that I was being criticized, but it was my sin. My sin, and I must bear it alone. Nothing. I'll be careful, either way. Sorry. Mion, now aware that nothing had happened, heaved a big sigh with her shoulders, looking relieved. Oh, my. I knew I smelled something good coming from over here. I'd be much obliged if you allowed me to have some. We heard the repulsive voice of a fat man. Jeez. It was Oishi-san, trailed by a handful of police officers. He was acting energetically, in a way unfitting given the situation. There's not much left, but you can have some if you want. Mion didn't like Oishi-san very much. Her cold attitude, though, didn't seem to bother Oishi-san in the slightest. It was like splashing water in a frog's face. Well now, miso soup leftovers have a bit too much salt for my taste. Confound it. Would you all like any? He recommended it to his subordinates, but everyone gave dry smiles and refused. So have the police gotten hold of any clues? Rana's smile was warm enough to replace the miso soup. Don't you worry, little missy. Everything's fine. We're searching for them real good. He didn't say a word about having found any new clues. In other words, there had been no progress. That sure was an annoying way of beating around the bush. In any case, it really has gotten late. All you youngsters should get on home and get some sleep. It'll be bad for your health otherwise. Yeah. Kei-chan, Rena, get some rest. These guys get our tax money. They'll handle it from here for us. We're taxpayers too, you know. It's like we're drinking our own piss. I really wasn't in the mood for laughter. In fact, Oishi-san was the only one laughing like an idiot. Okay, seriously, please do your best. Let's go home, Keiichi-kun. It'll be harder to wake up tomorrow if we don't. Yes, that's right. I can always bring you home if you need. Kuma-chan, why don't you bring the car around? Ah, no thanks. We came on our bicycles, so... No need to worry. We came in a truck. We'll just throw the bikes in the back. We may have gotten pretty sleepy, but we just needed to ride home at this point. I didn't want to bother the police like that. Ren, however, nodded. Okay, if you insist, we'd appreciate it. It's probably safer than if we went back alone. When I thought about it carefully, I realized that Rena's idea was extremely rational. Now that it's decided, let's get a move on, shall we? Okay, bye. Good night. Rena, Kei-chan? Yeah. Mi-chan, you go to bed soon, too, okay? Good night. I waved my hand as well, saying goodbye. Riki-chan and Satoko still hadn't been found. My unease, however, was steadily being pushed away by sleepiness. Ren showed the police where our bicycles were so that Uishi-san could haul them up into their truck. He prompted us to get into the back seat. I could hear the springs squeaking as I sat down onto a seat that would normally hurt my rear end, but at this point it was very soft and was more than comfortable enough for me to fall asleep on. Ladies first, we'll start with the little Mrs. house. Where do you live? Thank you. My house is, well... Skip forward. Ren's voice slowly grew distant. I felt myself being sucked into the void of sleep. Hello? Marba-san, are you asleep back there? Hmm? When I came to, it was quiet. The car was parked. Oishi-san was giving me light slaps to the cheek. It didn't feel good at all, so I woke up immediately. I'm sorry, I just fell asleep. Something was being held right under my nose. A clump of metal? It was a can of coffee. It's lukewarm by now, but cafe au lait... I don't even know how to pronounce that, even though I've read it like 50 times before. Just look that up real quick. Do, do, do. Cafe au lait. That's what it looks like, yeah. Seems it's French. Is good even at room temperature. Oh, thanks. I mechanically took the can and opened the whole top. The feeling of the warm, sweet liquid going down my throat awakened my sleepy mind. When my drowsiness receded, I started wanting to know why the car was stopped, and why I was offered coffee. Oishi-san, who had been in the driver's seat, had at some point moved to the back. Suddenly, I had a very bad feeling about this. It reminded me of the questioning yesterday at the library. It was already too late by the time I had realized I had made a mistake. Today, of all days, it didn't look like I would be getting away. I had a feeling that until Oishi-san heard what he wanted to, he wouldn't be letting me go. No. Please don't get all formal on me. I'm not going to eat you or anything. Marba-san. Oishi-san gulped down the last of his coffee, then stretched wide, showing me how relaxed he was. That, however, only served to heighten my nervousness. What do you need from me? Need? Oh, no, nothing really. You're going to evade the question at this point? What a deeply unreadable man. Well, I don't need you for anything. I just thought that you might need something from me, Marba-san. I don't need anything. Oh, I see. Really? Are you sure there's nothing? There was only one side door in the back seat of this truck. In other words, my only exit was blocked off by Oishi-san. I couldn't get away. I could only limply hang my head and maintain my silence. Oishi-san, despite my reticence, relaxed and began smoking a cigarette. The cries of the insects outside seemed to be growing longer and longer, to an amount of time that almost seemed infinite. Here I was sure that you had something you wanted to talk to me about. Oishi-san exhaled a puff of smoke. The windows were open, but the tobacco smoke still accumulated inside the vehicle. How much did Oishi-san know? What did he know, and what do you want to hear from me? If finding out the truth made you disappear, then if I told him, would Oishi-san disappear too? I had a feeling that I didn't need to worry about that in his case. I wonder how all this ended up happening. Oishi-san addressed me in a low tone, as if he was talking to himself. How all this ended up happening? How the hell should I know? That was what I wanted to know. You know Jiro Tomitaki-san and Mio Takano-san, right? I know you do, because I personally witnessed you with them during the festival, along with Shion Sonozaki-san. Do you know how Tomitaki-san and Takano-san are doing right now? They've actually, well, passed away. They've met very untimely deaths. Oishi-san probably played that card in order to surprise me. However, I already knew, and didn't display the extreme reaction he expected. What's this? Did you already know? Unfortunately for this question in particular, remaining silent was equivalent to saying yes. Oh, Senda, did you also know? The reason Tomitaka-san and Takano-san were cursed like that? People are saying that apparently they went into some forbidden building, the storehouse for ritual implements. That forbidden shed sitting away Hinamizo's blood-stained past, where the mistake that started it all happened. Do you know about the rumors that say the mayor and Rikafurude-san were cursed because of that too? That would mean it was mine and Shion's fault. He was right. As soon as we revealed what we did. What did they call it? A ritual storehouse? They're saying it was bad luck. The lock to it had been replaced by a simpler one, which made it easier for thieves to get inside. What? This was news to me. I thought it was mentioned before. Until last year, it apparently had these big bars and a huge padlock on it. I mean, you know, ever since the priest and his wife passed away, Furude-san has been managing the place, right? Apparently, she talked to the mayor saying she wanted them replaced with a lighter, more simple padlock because the bars were too heavy for her. I didn't know anything about those big bars he was talking about, but the lock had certainly been a simple one. It was a pretty cheap one, too, and it didn't really fit my impression of what a lock for a place you'd store something as important as ritual implements would look like. Rika-san is a small girl, after all. The bars were heavy with rust, and they must have caused her a lot of trouble. So the mayor hired a craftsman and replaced the lock with a simple padlock so she could open it with a key. So how does that mean it was bad luck? Here's what I'm saying. Thieves couldn't get in with the old tight lock. The mayor and Rika-san replaced it with the cheap lock and key on their own, so thieves broke into it. Apparently that's how it's going down. That explanation's a bit... Letting that slide, certain members of the village delivered punishment upon the thieves who stole into the ritual storehouse, as well as the mayor and Rika-san who changed the lock. At least those are the whispers that seem to be going around. Maibara-san, what do you think? What do I think? I don't really know what you mean by certain members of the village. Are you familiar with the three families? Representatives from each of them gave short addresses at the Watanagashi Festival's opening ceremony. Did you see them? I came partway through the festival, so I don't really... The three families are the three oldest families in Hinamizawa. To give actual names, the Kimiyoshi family, the Sonozaki family, and the Furude family. They each have quite the lineage, it seems. Long ago, it's said that everything in the village was decided by a council of the three families. The Kimiyoshi family, Old Man Kimiyoshi, meaning the mayor's family. The Sonozaki family was Mion's. So the Furude family was Rikichan's family then. After the war, the Sonozaki family quickly expanded their influence. Practically speaking, after leading the fight against the construction during the dam conflict, they jumped to the top of the hierarchy in Hinamizawa. You see, though, in accordance with the old ways, they still decide important village matters only after consulting with the three families. That's why the leaders of the three families each have their own address at the start of Watanagashi. In other words, the mayor, the old lady currently in charge of the Sonozaki family, and the last remaining member of the Furude family, Rika-san. I heard that the Sonozaki family was pretty high up there, so Rika-chan's family was just as old? Well, as you're aware, she has no relatives at all. In reality, the Furude family holds pretty much no influence. However, it seems like people gravitate towards Rika-san on a personal level. I hear that many of the village's elderly have blind faith in her. It was certainly true that Rika-chan had an odd sort of charisma amongst the elderly. So, what are you telling me about all this three family stuff for? Oishi-san paused for emphasis, lighting another cigarette. I've explained a lot, but I suppose it's still not enough. I'm asking because I don't understand. Oishi gave me a dry, meaningful grin and blew out another puff of smoke. Members of the three families are disappearing one after the other. That's what I'm talking about. I've read that it's based on some kind of old traditions inherent in Hinamizawa, but I don't know much beyond that. And the only families hit are the ones that aren't the Sonozakis. I don't know anything about it either. That's why I'm asking. The leaders of the Kimiyoshi and Furude families have disappeared, so maybe the leader of the Sonozaki family will disappear next. Well, that's just a random idea bouncing around in my head at the moment. No, just kidding, really. The leader of the Sonozaki family? Who is it? The current leader is the old lady at their main house, but it wouldn't be incorrect to say that practically all the rights of leadership been transferred to her granddaughter, Mion-san. The visage of Mion giving prompt directions to adults while searching for Rikichan sprung back to mind. Mio? She's going to disappear? I hadn't even thought of that possibility. All my hair stood on end. That's insane. Nobody wants that, right? Of course not. We can't allow that. Clamp. Oichi-san grabbed my shoulders with both hands. Then help us, Maibara-san. Uh-huh. If there's anything you've noticed about Mion Sonozaki lately, please tell me. I was going along with him? By the time I had realized it, it was too late. Oishi-san brought his face in closer, almost close enough to ram into me, waiting for my next words. This pressure. I can't tear my eyes away from his. That moment I heard a beeping sound. It was from the driver's seat. He ignored it at first, but then it started to bother him, so he finally let go of me and leaned into the driver's seat. Hello? Yep, loud and clear. I was saved. Of course, it's not like I could escape through this opening. I see. Yes, all right. Let's head back then. Yes. Okay. Apparently he was being recalled. Now that I knew I'd be freed, the tension in my body dissipated all at once. It looks like I need to get going. We're just getting to the good part, too. That's too bad. Oishi-san flung open the door, exited, and walked around the front to the driver's seat. He left the door open. Did that mean I could leave? You really care about your friends, Maibara-san. An admirable trait for a kid to have in this day and age. I totally understand that it feels like you'd be betraying them if you told the police anything. Maibara-san, it's the middle of the night, so get a good night's sleep and then think about it. Just a little bit of courage from you might end up being what saves many of your friends in the end. Did you want to say that the sacrifices wouldn't stop with Rikichan and Satoko? You know this already, but every night since Watanashi, something has happened. In the past, the curse only occurred once per year, but this time it's been going on for days. What a prosperous year this has been. I don't think you can call that prosperous. The night before last night, and now today. There's no proof that something won't happen tomorrow night as well. It's our job to prevent such things before they happen, but for that, we need your cooperation, Maibara-san. I looked out the open door to see none other than my own house right in front of me. It creeped me out that he knew my name and address, but I was too sleepy right now. I was too sleepy to care. Well, you're probably tired. It's already 3 in the morning. Please get yourself a good rest. Yes, sir. I'll be going now. When I was about to get out of the truck, as if to deliver a parting blow, Oishi-san said in a raised voice, I'll be coming by every day until you feel like talking, all right? I don't believe forcing you to confess in an interrogation room is really in fashion these days. I couldn't say anything in response, but me slamming the door shut probably served the same purpose. After lightly beeping the horn, Oishi-san's truck drove off. I went to the front door without waving goodbye. The door was locked, but the chain wasn't up. I unlocked the door and entered. Then walked over to the staircase. That was where I lost consciousness. Meep, meep. Ooh, more tips. review tips. Sonozaki family. The one to drastically expand its influence after the war was the Sonozaki family. The leader at the time was Oryo Sonozaki, who still has that seat today. Oryo Sonozaki has grown old, and today you can only catch a glimpse of who she was at the time. From what I've been told, however, she was a leader extolled as the best in history. Having become so old, aside from going out a few times a week for lessons, she spends her time at home in solitude, and seems to leave most of the ceremonial affairs to her heir, Mion. There are different views on why the successor was not her daughter, but her granddaughter Mion, but it's rumored that it has to do with disownment of her daughter and son-in-law. That uninhibited granddaughter, Mion Sonozaki, still shows no signs of the dignity required of the new leader. However, she does have Sonozaki blood in her name, in her veins, and is permitted the name of Demon. She still doubtlessly requires caution, and is probably hiding her fangs and claws as skillfully as the leaders of the past did. There was only one leader before that. Or at least, yeah, that's true. Alright, go back here. Yes, the postal worker hasn't seen anything either. The Sonozaki main house has their seal hanging from their mailbox, so that anyone can stamp their mail or parcels with it and drop it in. No, that's really rather careless of them. So, when was she last seen? She was last seen at the Watanashi opening ceremony greetings. She apparently returned home right after that. Well, she is pretty old. From what I've heard, she goes out a few times a week to take lessons, right? Have you found anything out about that? Every Monday she goes to the assembly hall to practice the Taisho Goto. But she didn't go this week. Any calls to say she wasn't going to be there? Has anyone confirmed it? No, nobody. She apparently takes days off once in a while, though, so no one thought it was strange. Tomorrow, why don't we pretend we're at the town hall and call around 10 o'clock? Please figure out whether she's at home. 10 o'clock? Got it. Ever since it started to seem more and more like ancient Hinamizawa traditions had something to do with all of this, he had been keeping a careful eye on the three families. At this point, the leader of the Kimiyoshi family and the leader of the Furude family had disappeared. There was only one leader left, Oryo Sonozaki, the leader of the Sonozaki family. She was apparently a pretty old woman. Her dignity hasn't waned, but she still only appeared before people rarely, so it was difficult to confirm where she was at any given time. She, the last leader, hadn't been seen since the day of Watanashi. Was she still alive and well within the Sonozaki main house? Or had she? According to Mion Sonozaki, she had fallen ill and was sleeping it off. I wonder if she's really sleeping. I'd like to take a look at her face and her pulse. You can say that again. The two of them breathed out a big puff of cigarette smoke. Ah, the 80s. Cigarettes. Oishi-san, about the search warrants for the Sonozaki main house in the Furude Shrine. Do you think we'll get them? Oishi didn't respond, exhaled another cloud of tobacco smoke, his surroundings now as foggy as his mind. That's a big no. Another scrapbook to read. The Hidden Demon. The inhabitants of Hinamizawa believe that the blood of demons flows in their blood. As such, the character of demon, Oni, is treated as very sacred. For example, the usage of the character Oni in names is apparently a right reserved for only the leaders of the Kimiyoshi and Sonozaki families. Case in point, we can see it in the current Sonozaki. Family leader's name, Oryo, was written with the character. Oh yeah, you can see the Oni right there, I guess. Yeah. This, and only this, is proof that she is a legitimate leader of the Sonozaki family. In the same way, Mion Sonozaki, its successor, contains Oni in her name, with Mi being written as that. Huh. It also goes for Oryo's daughter, Mion's mother, Akane, who did not succeed her. It's known that before the disowning, Akane's name was actually written as, though it was changed afterwards to still read as Akane. Incidentally, it's thought that the first character that mirrors Kiichiro's name originally meant demon, which can also be read as Ki. It should be said that names using the character Oni aren't limited only to successors of the Sonozaki family. You can even find it in the last names of the three families. For example, the characters for Kimiyoshi are likely a split up version of Oni, if you write in reverse and top to bottom, as it clearly resembles the character. Does it? I mean, it's close. As for the Furude family, who have been in the Shinto priesthood for generations, the word for fortune teller can be written without interval characters as that. I think that with the addition of a demon's horn, the tick on top of the character, that becomes that is used in their character name. Now, in the case of the Sonozaki family, where Sonozaki is written there, I can't find any reference to the character, perhaps because it's already ingrained into their first names. They were the clan responsible for running the Watsunagashi ceremony, so I think that instead they include the contents of that ceremony into their last name. The Zaki in Sonozaki is a conjugation of the word for slice, and the Sono, written as that, probably contains the hidden meaning of human body, as it is a complicated mess of organs enclosed by four sides. I think, in other words, that Sonozaki comes from those who slice open the gut. Request denied. That must be for the warrants. I'm back. How did it go? Did you find any clues? The officers shook their heads in disappointment. Exhaustion was plainly showing on everyone's faces. That was only natural. None of them had gotten a wink of sleep since the day of Watsunagashi. Chief, let the youngest of us take a nap and then switch them out. We've got a long stretch ahead of us after all. Let's not push ourselves too hard. Rest up so we can take it easy as we go. I've been telling them to sleep in shifts. Nobody actually seems willing to sleep, though. Could you tell them yourself, Oishi-san? Oh my. You don't need to force yourselves. Komiyama-kun, please let everyone sleep in shifts, starting with the youngest. Komiyama-san, please do that. After the chief told him as well, Komiyama-san left his seat. So, Chief, still no good on our request? It's just a rumor among the villagers in the first place, you know? It's going to be difficult without more concrete evidence. Even when that evidence might be tucked away in there, we need evidence that evidence is tucked away in there. Chief, don't start speaking in riddles to me now. We have witnesses that say 4 people, including the 2 who died, went into the forbidden ritual storehouse without permission. This is all reliable information. You might call it information, but they're really only rumors. They're not concrete evidence. Well, it's true that we don't have any pictures of the 4 of them sneaking in with cloth tied around their heads. Anyway, those 4 saw something inside the storehouse. Something important enough that they'd be erased. Important enough that they would be erased. What would that be exactly? That's why I'm asking for a warrant to go looking for it in the first place. Anything pointing out the Sonozaki family's connections to violent organizations would be a major contender, like a pile of Tokarevs, or a secret poppy production facility. That being a sort of drug, I assume. The secret Sonozaki family fortune would also be pretty difficult to discard. Look, Oishi-san, I know how you feel. However, that storehouse is a sacred building belonging to the Furude Shrine, and we need to have proper consideration for the locals when dealing with it. I heard that there was an hour-long call made from Congressman Sonozaki to the big man. Chief, could he have nailed you back down? Anyway, as long as we don't have suitable evidence, we won't get a search warrant for the storehouse. That goes for the Sonozaki main house, too, especially considering that's the jurisdiction of both Section 4 and the Prefectural Police's Crime Prevention Division. We need careful preparations first. If you say you need preparations, then why don't you just let me talk with them directly? Shiki-chan is the head of Section 4, right? For crime prevention, it's Yamaumi-san. They seem like they'd be quicker to talk to if I sat them down at a mahjong table. Mahjong. Chief, you have a visitor. Yikes. Pushing the employee who guided him in right out of the way was an old man who looked like a Yakuza member, given his crested kimono and hakama. Did you not get enough of this over the phone? I'm Congressman Sonozaki. I demand to know who's responsible for this. This instant. Hello. I'm the Division Chief Takasugi. I don't need your name. I could have you demoted on a whim. You wouldn't even be enough. Bring out the one called Oishi or whatever. He deserves punishment for requesting a search warrant on the sacred Furude shrine. I sincerely apologize. Oishi is currently out on an investigation, and he's been difficult to contact. I'll take his place and hear you out. So please, have a seat. The chief's eyes were telling me to get out of here. Perhaps I'll gratefully accept this favor. Maybe I'll go lay down in the nap room. Listen here, the Furude Shrine spent 2,600 years under the imperial calendar and 2,500 more beyond that. It is sacred. A sanctuary that must never be defiled. The 800,000 gods, Orisho-sama, and the spirits of our ancestors are enshrined there. The holy shrine protects Hinamizawa from when the sun comes up to when it sets, and from when the moon rises to when it falls. Who is the idiot who wanted to set foot in there? Besides, the right to religion is the most revered right of the people of this country in the Constitution. You dare to be so bold as to sully that using your own investigation's negligence as pretext? I cannot, and I will not, allow it. Are you listening, you lying scum? I'm angry now, so you're not getting off the hook that easily. Alright, go to the next chapter. I think this is chapter 10 now. Which means I still have a while to go with this game. Oh no, end of chapter 10, so if it follows the same as the last one, we're on chapter 11, there's 12 chapters. I saw a ceiling I was familiar with. Though I was groggy from sleep, I did notice that I was in my futon, like I was every morning. I looked at my clock, and despite having turned in so late last night, I had awoken at precisely the same moment I always did. I'm so low on sleep, but I guess you really can get up at the same time every day. The secrets of the human body never cease to amaze me. If I went back to sleep like this, I would definitely not be waking up again. I spurred myself on and slipped out of the futon. Mom asked me about last night at breakfast. Apparently, we too had gotten a call asking if we knew where Rika-chan and Satuko were, and Mom vaguely understood that something serious was happening. So then, you were out late last night with all your friends looking for them? Until about 3, I think. Yeah. Did you find them? Rika-chan and Satuko-chan, I mean. Crunch. I warily bit into my toast. It really didn't have any taste. Just then, we heard the chime go ding-dong. I looked up at the clock and saw that it was about 5 minutes past my regular meeting time with Rena. It was her at the door. Good morning. Did you get any sleep, did you? I think I slept for a few hours. You could probably count them on a chicken's toes, though. So that's like 3. Rena seemed pretty sleep-deprived as well. There was something missing from her usual spirit. Are you going to school? Yeah. I think it would be better that way. She said, smiling, albeit stiffly. Ren was probably worrying her heart out about those two as well. Even so, she wanted to go to school. If you stay home today, I think you'd just be worrying non-stop and sleeping. I don't want that. So let's go to school together. Alright. Wait just a moment. I'll get ready. I was just a little bit happy about Ren mustering that much consideration for me. We went to the place where we'd usually meet up with Mion, but she was nowhere to be found. We were a little bit late today, so we thought she'd be waiting for us. I guess Mii-chan couldn't wake up today, huh? Ah, that's right. For her, it wasn't just yesterday. She was up all night looking for the mayor the night before last night, too. We waited for a bit. Time passed until it got to the point where it was okay for us to go on alone, and we exchanged glances. What do we do? Wait a little longer? At that point, my brain, which had finally been woken up by the morning air, recalled the ominous words Oishi-san had left with me with last night. The leaders of the three families were disappearing one after the other. And next, it might be the Sonozaki's leader. Could Mion have? No, that couldn't be. Let's go. Let the ladders sleep for today. Ray gave me a pat on the back. Mion. She's still here, right? Hmm? Did you say something? Oh, nothing. Just talking to myself. Let's get moving. The two of us head to school by ourselves. On the way, we saw a bunch of our classmates accompanied by their parents. It even looked like some of them were being taken to school by car. Surprisingly, the principal was also standing watch at the school gate. I had never seen that before. Good morning. Good morning. The principal was bowing to her classmates' guardians. The wooden sword leaning next to him was a little ominous. Mara-kun, good morning. Ryugu-kun, good morning. Good morning. Your teacher has something important to say, so head straight to the classroom. Alright. Ren and I said nothing. The madness that only existed at night had finally crawled out into the sunlight. That's what it felt like. Good morning, everyone. The hushed conversations that had been spreading for a while now all disappeared like an illusion the moment our teacher walked into the door. Silence dominated the classroom. The principal came in with our teacher as well. This was clearly not a normal morning. First, the principal has something important to tell everyone. Go ahead, Mr. Principal. The principal cleared his throat and approached the dais. I'm sure some of you already know this. The classroom was dead silent. Everyone was staring at Rikichan and Satoko's empty seats. The principal briefly and simply declared that Rikichan and Satoko had gone missing. There wasn't a single person in the classroom who didn't already know. There seemed to be many, however, who couldn't accept it as the truth. It had been confirmed to them now by the principal's words. There were sobs throughout the classroom, and I heard a kid crying. They steadily spread throughout the room. The big-hearted principal wasn't able to keep his cool either. Okay, everyone, pay attention. From today on, your parents or guardians will be taking you to school. For those of you whose parents can't do so, you'll be coming here in groups. I made a handout, so read it carefully and be sure to show it to your parents. Understand? The teacher's voice was a little abrasive. Not even she could conceal the strain she felt from this unprecedented, abnormal situation. They should have just canceled school today. However, Brenna told me that the school was also like a nursery for the students whose parents both worked, so some of them wouldn't want school to be canceled. Well then, let's begin the lesson. Class president? She's absent, I see. Then, whoever's on duty, let me hear it. All rise. That feeling of wanting to maintain an everyday atmosphere, even if only in school, precisely because our lives had been messed up, was something that I agreed with at this point. Me, 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 me. As for the teacher, who always had her lunch in the staff lounge, she ate in the classroom today. I had to laugh at her curry bento, which was just a rumor until now, but there was nobody to laugh with me. Rena brought her chair and lunch over to my seat. Today, it was only the two of us. The fact that we didn't need to drag any other desks over was sad. I'm sleepy. Yeah, I don't feel like sleeping anymore, though. In fact, I'm jealous of the people that could sleep at a time like this. They got nerves of steel. You're right. I was sleepy this morning, but my drowsiness had dissipated after coming to school and constantly feeling the incredible tension. Rena's bento box didn't have its usual luster. That was to be expected. Rena was up for a long time last night, too. She wouldn't have had time to make her lunch beforehand. It's not like she would have gotten up this early this morning. Grab anything you want. Go ahead. You can admit that my bento is better today. Okay, then I'll have some. Wow, a chocobo roll with perla and cheese? That's interesting. Right, yours might have ready-made food in it, but it's pretty good too. I realized the two of us were desperately trying to brighten the afternoon mood to its usual level as much as we could. I looked around the classroom, and it seemed like we were the only ones trying to do so, surrounded as we were by gloominess. Just the two of us sharing our lunches like this, it's well, sort of like something. Oh. Haha. Our laughter grew quieter. I was the first one to mess up. Sorry. I'm sorry. No, it's okay. It's not your fault. Our chopsticks both stopped moving. We couldn't keep it up anymore. Rikichan, Satsuko. I wonder where they went. Those words might have sounded too miserable. Everyone was thinking it, using roundabout ways to address the topic, but I came right out and said it. I heard Rena catch her breath. Yesterday, while you were gone, I heard a bunch of things, so I'll tell you what I know, okay? Sorry again about last night. Go ahead. At that time, since they had arrived for support, Rena was helping the Ladies' Society cook the miso soup we had had. They reported all the information the villagers had gathered, and Rena said she overheard it. They didn't know anything important, though, did they? Rikichan and Satsuko went home after school and then apparently went somewhere on their bikes, but other than that, Mion had told me yesterday. We had no clues. Yeah, the police also said that they probably went out on their bikes to go play somewhere as soon as they got home. If they were going out to play somewhere on their bikes or after getting home, then they might have gone into town. So I guess they concluded they disappeared while in Okonomiya. The police were saying how they were going to expand their search to Okonomiya in the morning. In town. It'd make sense why we couldn't find them even though we were searched all of Hinamizawa then. Still, something didn't fit. I had no basis for thinking that, just a gut feeling. I revealed something to Rikichan that was likely very important to her that day. Then Rikichan had told me to leave it to her. And then, what did she say? Oh, right. If she didn't work hard, then something bad might happen to the dog too, I think. With all the talk of cats and dogs, I still didn't have the faintest idea what she really meant, but it might have been Rikichan's way of saying this was a race against time. Damn it. I had selfishly pushed my anxiety on Rikichan and tried to run away. When I thought about it, I shouldn't have run back then. I should have asked her more about the dogs and cats. The more I think back on it, I really screwed up. Anyway, I don't think Rikichan was in a situation where she would just go off to play somewhere. Of course, I didn't have any evidence or conviction to base that on. It was just a hunch. I don't think she'd go into town. You think so too, Keiichi-kun? I agree. Rikichan and Satsuko-chan must have disappeared in Hinamizawa. I looked back at Rena, startled. I could hear the conviction in those words. Without replying to my gaze, she took her bento box and went to the hallway. I'm going to go rinse this out. She timed that in a way that broke off the conversation. Suddenly, I got the feeling that the next thing she had to say would be hard to say aloud in the classroom. I hurriedly grabbed my bento box and followed her. It's weird that they didn't just switch it to lunchbox, honestly. It's They could have left it as bento, put it as lunchbox, but putting it as bento box is a bit. Rena didn't go to the kitchenette, but rather to the water fountains out back, where students seldom went. Kitchenette. Let's see, a small cooking area, which usually has a refrigerator and microwave, but may have other places. It's basically like hotels or motel rooms. It's just small little like shelf area. The water flowed down onto our bento boxes. During that time, Rena didn't say a word. Then, after making sure there were no other students around, she finally opened her mouth to speak. The whole thing about Rikichan and Satsuko-chan going to town to play and then disappearing, that didn't make sense for some reason, so I decided to investigate a little bit myself. Who did you ask? What did you ask them about? I asked the Ladies' Societies all kinds of things. There was a lot of tofu in the miso soup yesterday, remember? The old lady from the Tomita tofu shop came too. The Tomita tofu shop. Oh, I remember. Tomita-kun. That was one of the stores on the road leading to the hospital. Those huge lumps of tofu dancing in the bathtub like cistern always looked nice and refreshing. The old lady says she remembers Satsuko-chan stopping to buy tofu there on her way home from school. Tofu? Well, it's on the way home, right? How is that a clue? Just listen. Do you remember when we went to Rikuchan's house? Yeah, the cooking utensils were out there. Rena stepped away from the sinks and spread her arms wide to recreate the space of Rikuchan's room. There was a pot on her gas cooker. There was miso soup in it. I think there was probably about half of it inside. The rest was in the refrigerator. They must have been planning to make chilled tofu. It was on a plate in plastic wrap. As Rena explained, she walked around as if she was really going through Rikuchan's room. Still, Rena, why does this matter? Keiichi-kun, when you make miso soup, you put the tofu in last. That means that Rikuchan or Satsuko-chan, whoever was cooking, was standing there making it up until right before dinner time. That means they weren't out playing. Right up until dinner time? Wasn't everyone saying that their bikes weren't around, so they must have gone somewhere to play by themselves? The trash in the countertop bin was put in there really awkwardly, too. Rikuchan makes most of their food and lunches, but occasionally Satsuko-chan does too. So Satsuko-chan was cooking that night. So that means that Satsuko at least didn't go somewhere to play. She was preparing dinner? Yeah. Then I took a look at the rice cooker and there was rice for two still in there. So she made dinner for both of them, but neither of them ate it. Is that it? Rana nodded. So next I looked in the fridge. There was some chilled tofu made from the other half that they bought. That's not all either. There were a whole bunch of plates with side dishes for dinner, and all of them were in plastic wrap. You usually plastic wrap things so that you can have the leftovers for the next day. My mom does it all the time too, using them in breakfast or lunch. That's right. You use plastic wrap to save leftovers for later. So the fact that they were in the fridge means that they didn't plan on eating them that night at least. Is that what it means? Keiichi-kun, think a little harder. Their dinner was totally untouched and wrapped up. What do you think that means? Well, that means they didn't need to eat dinner anymore. So they would have gone out to eat or ordered takeout. It must have been really sudden, too. If they had decided to do that beforehand, they wouldn't have made anything, but there was dinner for the two of them. That means that when Satsuko-chan was making their dinner, they really thought they were going to eat it right until before they didn't. So then, the theory about the two of them going out to play and then disappearing is wrong. Yep, they disappeared after making dinner, and right before they ate it. Probably around 7 o'clock. Where would they have gone at a time like that by themselves without eating? That's obviously where this is leading. Keiichi-kun, do you remember? On their fold-out table, there were things like soy sauce and a chopstick holder. There might have been something like that. I don't remember. The container for the soy sauce. It was empty. There wasn't even a drop left. Chilled tofu wouldn't taste good without it. So I looked under their sink for the larger bottle of soy sauce they have. You sure know a lot about where they keep stuff. I've been to Rikuchan's house and cooked for them before. Rena cleared her throat, her face returning to a serious expression. Then when I opened the cabinet, the big bottle of soy sauce wasn't there at all. It wasn't there? What does that mean? Everything I'm going to say from here on is just Rena's idea. So please listen until the end without saying anything. Oh, looks like the cat's starting to make some noise about food, so I'm going to be right back. Happy cat has his food. Last night, Satoko was making dinner like normal. Rika-chan usually watched TV until the food was ready, so she was probably lying down watching a variety show or something. Satoko put the tofu in the miso soup, and right when dinner was about to be ready, she noticed that they were out of soy sauce. So Rika-chan, who had nothing to do, brought the big bottle of soy sauce to a neighbor's house to borrow theirs. I don't really know my neighbors that well. Would people be willing to just give her soy sauce? Yeah, it's not all that uncommon in Hinamizawa. So Rika-chan rode her bike out to get some soy sauce. No matter how long Satoko-chan waited, though, Rika-chan didn't come back. So then Satoko-chan called up the house where Rika-chan was going. No answer. Would Rika happen to be imposing on you? Something like that? Then the other person must have replied with something like this. We have plenty of food here, so you should come too, Satoko-chan. Rika-chan has already eaten. I think that's how they called her out there. Satoko called Rika a few names in private and wrapped up the dinner she had made for them. She put it in the fridge so she could use it for breakfast and lunch the next day. Then Satoko got on her bike too, and headed for the house where Rika-chan was. Okay, but this is already pretty strange. You don't normally make so much food that you can give it to people who suddenly arrive at your house. A veteran housewife would normally never make so much food that she could feed 2 extra people. Unless you're making meals for 2 that have leftovers for 2 people tomorrow, but hey. Could it have just been a coincidence that they made too much? It's still unthinkable. Rena flatly denied me. Since Rika-chan knew that Satoko-chan had worked really hard to make dinner for them, didn't she? No matter what kind of food she was offered, she wouldn't let Satoko-chan's dinner go to waste. This was all only circumstantial evidence and Rena's guesswork. Even so, it was all extremely convincing. It was the only ray of hope we had to topple this situation bereft of clues. Then, Rena, where did Rika-chan go to get soy sauce? This was the heart of it. It would have to be somewhere she'd be comfortable with asking for soy sauce, and somewhere Satoko wouldn't think it was suspicious that she'd been invited for dinner. So, who was it? Rena slowly shook her head. That's all for Rena's guesses. These are all just ideas, okay? Keep them a secret from the police. What is there to hide? Even if only half of what you say is right, it should be a good clue for all this. Keiichi-kun, this all means suspecting someone from Hinamizawa. We can't suspect anyone without a really good reason. I saw a few girls coming over to rinse out their bento boxes. Rena cut the conversation short there and returned to the classroom. I stayed there alone, my body bathed in the lively voices of the cicadas. Let's think about this, in my own way. Rena had barely any information to go on, yet she'd reasoned out that much. So there should be something that only I, who knew far more than Rena did, could deduce. Oishi-san said this last night too, but this incident was definitely occurring within Hinamizawa. Rena might not have wanted to believe it, but it's basically given that the culprit is someone from the village. I'm just going to go and do my own theory before he starts doing his, based on what we saw. So the villagers have a key to the storage house shed that the two live in. So they could have emptied out the soy sauce. And then, oh no, we're out of soy sauce. How did we let this happen? We need to go to our villager's neighbor's house. And that's how they set it up. Then they kidnapped Rika, then Sato. The trigger for everything was when the 4 of us trespassed in the forbidden storehouse. Somebody saw us going in there. For the culprits, breaking the taboo was a crime punishable by death. So that night, Tomitake-san and Takano-san were sacrificed. There were 2 left. Shion and myself. However, before the culprits bore their fangs on Shion and me, they went after the mayor to whom Shion had confessed to her sin. Next, they went to Rika-chan, to whom I confessed my sin. And what about Satoko? Just a stray bullet? By itself, Rika-chan being sacrificed after I told her everything was mortifying. But Satoko, who was sacrificed for no reason, wasn't that all the more regrettable? Everything was my fault. Who would be the next to disappear? Rena. Would it be Shion and me next time? Why? Why weren't the culprits going for Shion and me right away, though? If they had enough power to erase the mayor and Rika-chan, then why not just get rid of Shion and me? If they went for us, well, I wouldn't like it, but I could still tolerate it. What I couldn't forgive was them getting rid of those we confessed to. Now that I think about it. Yesterday, Shion said something alarming. She felt like someone was watching her. So then, was someone watching me as well? Strangely, though, I hadn't felt anything like that until now. Even though I'm the root cause of everything, I had never once had that impression. Maybe that was simply because Shion was more cautious than me, and I was just careless. That's another story, though. Let's get back on track. Why weren't the culprits going after Shion and me? I felt like that's where the key to this lay. Could it be? Was I making a big assumption that I shouldn't have been? I thought and thought, but couldn't come up with an answer. The one thing I understood was that I was a concerned party to this case, and that I had a duty to watch over it until everything got resolved. I heard the ring of the bell declaring the end of the lunch break. Would somebody else disappear tonight? If nobody else did, then I wanted them to get rid of me tonight for sure, and then put an end to all this. Shion's hysterical voice on the phone last night came back to mind. They planned to murder those close to us first, make us as miserable as possible, and only then would they kill us. Maibara-kun, lunch break is over. Go back to the classroom. At the principal's urging, I returned to the classroom, which was quiet as the streets at night. There were a lot of parents picking up their children after school. It was just like a kindergarten. The students whose parents didn't come went home as a group. Of course, kindergartens and now elementary schools do that now because of stranger danger. We left school with everyone else, following the assigned route. Even while leaving, nobody said anything funny. They all looked like exhausted mountaineers silently marching through the mountains. As we went, one left and then another, and in the end, it was just Rena and me. I was supposed to escort Rena all the way to her house, but she declined. Will you be alright? It's not safe to go alone. It would be just as dangerous for you to go home by yourself after bringing me back, Keiichi-kun. It's still light out anyway. I'll be fine. I see. Then be careful, okay? Yeah. Huh? Isn't that a policeman? Rena pointed towards my house. I wonder who it could be. There was a car stopped in front of it. From out of that car came Uishi-san. He must have been waiting for my return to ambush me. Uishi-san started walking over wearing that annoying grin. Rena, you should go. If you get involved with him, you'll be here for hours. But, what did the police want with you? With you? Rena's a good person. Even when I made a fuss over Riku-chan's disappearance, she never asked me why I did. She could have been suspecting me ever since then, and that would have been okay. Even so, she still hadn't asked me anything. She didn't try and pressure me into revealing the truth. I'm not the culprit. I know that. That said, I can't say that I'm totally uninvolved with this incident. Rena simply listened, smiling like she always did. Even though I had insinuated that I was related to the incident, she didn't look at me as though she were looking at something dirty. I'll tell you next time. Okay. I'm looking forward to it. Get going, then. Rena gave me a slight bow and trotted away, leaving me, alone with Oishi-san, who walked over. Hello, hello. Welcome home, Maibara-san. Hello. It looks like your parents aren't here. My, was I in a bit of a spot. He came all the way to my house. I could only thank my good fortune that my parents were absent. Since neither of them was around at this hour, they would probably be back late. I think Dad got called out on business. I don't think he'll be back until later. I see. Well, that's convenient, I suppose. We can do this without giving your parents any strange ideas. Oishi-san pushed my back, prompting me to walk. It seemed like he wanted me to get in the car. Are you taking me to the police station? I wasn't the culprit, but I was the cause of everything. It wouldn't be weird if you wanted to investigate me. That kind of gave me a resigned feeling. No, no, I just don't want to stand around talking. We can just talk in the car, that's all. Come now, don't be shy. He opened the back door and urged me inside. If I got in, I wouldn't have a very easy time getting out. If I said no, however, then this man might really handcuff me and take me away. I couldn't refuse. I could only accept in good grace. Maybe he'd feel more welcome if he let him in the front seat instead of the back. The inside of the car had been cooled too much by the air conditioner, and there was a rusty smell coming from the filter, which must have been cleaned only rarely. Oh, is it too cold? I'll turn the car off. He turned off the engine and it suddenly became quiet, and the voices of the Higurashi, with all their cool loneliness, snuck inside. It sounded to me like a chorus of voices, lamenting my exorbitant punishment for having harbored such foolish curiosity. For a few moments, while listening to those voices, I myself lamented the days that had been twisted and distorted since that night. Oishi-san, as if waiting for me to voluntarily begin talking, lit a cigarette and listened to the Higurashi. The silence became deafening, and I was the one who folded first. How is the investigation going? The investigation? Of what? There have been so many. Which do you mean? All of them. Well, alright then. They're officially secret investigations, and we're under a media blackout. I'll let you in on them. Then, shall we start from the first incident? The freak deaths of Tomitaki-san and Takuro-san on the night of Watanashi. On this one, embarrassingly enough, we haven't made any progress at all. First of all, Tomitaki-san. There are indications on his body that he was assaulted by a group of people, but we have no explanation for him clawing out his own throat and dying. We suspect an overdose from a stimulant or something, but we didn't detect anything. What about Takano-san? The same, we're in the dark. Autopsies for those who are burned to death are real tough. We believe she was doused in gasoline after she was strangled. That one falls under the Gifu Prefecture's police department. They haven't been very cooperative, even though it happened in our territory. Oh, that's not really relevant, though. So the police didn't know anything other than the fact that the victims died inexplicably. Nonetheless, the times when the incidents occurred have been generally placed right after the festival ended. It's a bit uncertain in Takano-san's case, but the likely prospect is that she was murdered at about the same time as Tomitaki-san, then dumped in the mountains in Gifu. Why would they bring a dead body all the way to the mountains? They should have just brought Tomitaki-san out there too. Oh my Maibara-san, you're quite sharp, you know that? Of course, I do believe that is something we need to be attentive of. There are a bunch of other suspicious things, but this is about all I can tell you at this point. How about the mayor? Have there been any clues? Having exhausted that topic, I changed the subject, otherwise he might turn the conversation on me. We investigated his movements on the day he disappeared. We didn't find anything that could provide any clues, but I'll tell you about it anyway. The mirror. Kiichiro Kimiyoshi. Apparently he was suffering from severe hemorrhoids. People who have lived a long time have an unusual amount of pride, so the mayor hadn't been telling anyone that he was going to a proctologist at a certain university hospital in Shishibone. On the day he disappeared, he had an appointment for a checkup, so he went out first thing in the morning. Even I knew that big hospitals, like university hospitals, had a really long waiting time. Apparently, people would get in line hours beforehand, even if they had an appointment. His exam ended at 1 p.m. After that, he ate a light meal in the hospital restaurant and passed the time reading a magazine. We know this because of a receipt we found in his wallet at his house. Therefore, there was nothing suspicious at all about that. That day, he had planned to go to a meeting in the assembly hall in the evening. He was supposed to return home with plenty of time to spare, but while he was on the train coming back, there was an accident. Seems it delayed him a bit, and he only got back to his house right before the meeting was scheduled to start. His family witnessed a very hectic mayor leaving to go to the assembly hall at the shrine. What was the meeting about? He disappeared on his way back home, right? The three families and the essential members of the town assembly were at the meeting. We think they were discussing how to deal with the serial freak death incidents that had happened again this year. So then, on his way home, the old man who had treated Shion like his own daughter, he was a dependable person who would encourage Shion whenever she felt pressured by anxiety, and yet Shion's painful voice struck me right in the heart. Hmm? Huh. What's the matter? I was taken aback by how strange my own voice sounded. What was it that just surprised me? I squeezed my head with my hands to try and drag back out what I had only just realized for a split second. The families. Remember, Keiichi, my brother, you just realized something. Something important. The night of Watanagashi. That was when everything started. That night, Takano-san and Tomitake-san died. The next morning, word of the incident had spread throughout Hinamizawa. They planned to talk about it during the evening meeting. The mayor, however, had an appointment at the hospital, and as planned, he went there without telling his family. So how did he know about the meeting? Dum dum. He got a checkup at the hospital. Wait, how did Shion talk to him? Ate something. And then there was an unexpected delay on his trade ride back. When he returned, the meeting was already about to start. The mayor changed clothes, got on his bicycle, and hurried to the assembly hall at the shrine as fast as he could. Right, how did he talk to Shion? From when he heard about the incident on the night of Watanagashi until when he showed up at the assembly hall, everything he was doing that day was done in secret. During that time, nobody found out that he went to the hospital alone. He ate alone. And he got on the train alone. That all meant he had absolutely no contact with anyone else. You couldn't have even called him on the phone. Okay, but what does that mean, Keiichi Maibara? Why does that matter, Keiichi Maibara? Who did Shion talk to? Ah. Keichan, what should I do? What's wrong? I'm just going to skip through this a bit. Keep going forward. I think this might be it. Sweat burst out on my body like bullets that became one long strand and slid down from my forehead to my nose and fell. So then, what does it mean? Hey, Keiichi Maibara, no more playing dumb. When did she tell him? Shion said she learned of the incident from a phone call her father had made that morning. The mayor had left the house first thing in the morning for his appointment at the hospital. He didn't tell anybody where he was going. Nobody knew about him going to the university hospital. Furthermore, his train ride back to his house was delayed by an accident. As soon as he got home, he rushed out to the assembly hall. Then the meeting at the assembly hall began and continued until it was dark out. Then everyone left. Nobody saw him after the meeting was over. He just disappeared. Which meant, which meant, which meant, Maibara-san, are you alright? If you're too hot, I can turn on the air conditioner. Another part of me was messing with my thoughts, demanding that I not think any further than that. My head was pounding violently, and the fluids packed inside it, all blended together until nothing made sense. It was just about to settle, yet it had been smashed and melted in the blink of an eye, no longer able to retain its shape. Maibara-san, are you in there? Ah, yeah. Oishi-san lit yet another cigarette. There was yet another cigarette butt placed in the ashtray. Was it displaying the passage of time? Had my thoughts been frozen over for that long? I've tried to tell you everything I know. In return, feel free to tell me anything you want, Maibara-san. My mind had become a gigantic, oozing mess. My brain felt like it had been totally minced by the blades of a blender, and I couldn't think. Now, don't climb up again. If there are any misunderstandings, I'd like to clear them up first. I don't think you're the culprit here or anything. Oishi-san gave his best attempt at an adult smile. I know the four of you snuck into the ritual storehouse that night. Everyone in the village heard rumors about it by the next day. That in itself means we should take you in for trespassing. But that isn't the problem. It's what was inside. What was inside that made the people who snuck in there end up as sacrifices? There wasn't anything. As soon as I said it, I regretted confirming my presence there, but I knew it didn't matter anymore. Was there really nothing in there? I mean, everyone who went in is being sacrificed one by one, you know? Even the mayor and Rika-san, who switched the lock on the door, were sacrificed. What was inside that could have caused such terrible things to happen? I was far too tired of keeping quiet about this. Perhaps that was Oishi-san's goal all along, but again, that didn't matter anymore. There was just a lot of torture devices that were used a long time ago. I looked around at them with everyone. Was that really all? That was really all. There was nothing terrible in there that would make you keep silent? Like a pile of psychoactive drugs? Maybe a secret poppy workshop? Perhaps there were mountains of Soviet or Chinese handguns. There weren't any suspicious wooden boxes or containers packed in there? There was nothing as exaggerated as what Oishi-san was hoping for, but I felt like in a way there were plenty of terrible things hidden in there. From the perspective of someone who viewed the storehouse as sacred, whether or not I thought I had seen crazy things didn't matter in the slightest. The four of us broke the taboo. Punished us. That should have been what happened. We put in a request for a search warrant thinking there might have been some secrets hidden in that storehouse. Yeah, it's been the sabotage of the century. They say it would be an insult to religious figures and something about the right to free religion in the Constitution. Ah, jeez. That's why I really didn't have any other recourse but to ask you, since you went in there. There really was just old, rusty, dusty torture equipment. Nothing else stood out. Then Tomitaka-san and Takano-san were only killed as a punishment for having broken the taboo? I didn't have an answer for the only part. I suppose I won't bother hiding it anymore. You're the only one to escape harm from so far. Everyone but you has disappeared, and yet you alone are safe. What's the difference between you and them that would protect you but bring harm to the others? That's what I want to know. There was something wrong with what Oishi-san was saying. You alone. You alone. Wait a second. What do you mean by you alone? No, I'm saying that you alone have been left alive, right? Out of the four people who tiptoed into the ritual storehouse for ritual implements, I mean, the only one left alive. Hold on. Shion was still. Jiro Tomitaka-san and Mio Takano-san died that night, and Shion Sonozaki disappeared the next day. Only you are still safe and sound at this point. Why only you? I'm saying that's what I want to know. Wait a moment. He got that phone call that night, so she disappeared in the day. Who called him? Shion disappeared? That's impossible. I unintentionally raised my voice, but I didn't care about that. Tomitaka-san died. Takano-san died. And Shion disappeared? When did she disappear? What is this guy talking about? Oh, well now, I thought you were long since aware of this. This is the first time I heard of it. Shion disappeared. When? Well, going back a bit, she disappeared the day after Wachanagashi. Going back a bit? Stop saying stuff I don't understand. Shion Sonozaki spends the night at relatives' houses depending on her mood on any given day, so no one thought much of not knowing where she was. She frequently takes days off from school, too. Her teacher has been pretty troubled by it. I didn't ask about any of that. I'm asking you when Shion disappeared. I told you it was the day after Wachanagashi. But what time? That's his question. The fluids in my body all reverse direction. I lost my sense of balance, and everything I could see started to warp and twist out of shape. I simply couldn't endure it. Hang on. Shion had already disappeared? That night, that phone call. Who was that? She called me every night. She encouraged me. We vowed that we would do our best to live on and not be erased. Yes, that should have been a phone call with Shion. Should have been a phone call with Shion. She took breaks from class like it was nothing, and her family wouldn't listen when I told them, so I didn't bother calling the school in the end. So it ended up taking quite a while before we realized she had disappeared. I felt a stabbing pain like needles were being pushed into every pore of my body. It started on my back and began spreading throughout the rest of me. When it had completely covered the surface of my skin, it began to worm its way inside my stomach as well. Don't you remember? We talked at the library the day after watching Nagashi. Shion-san was there then. That was the last we saw of her. No one knows where she's been since. That's... That can't be. That day, Oishi-san had only caught me, and Shion bounded away, lying that she needed to go to work. Didn't she call me that night? Her job was at a restaurant called Angel Mort, right? She hasn't been there since that day. She's been completely absent ever since. The person at the restaurant couldn't get in touch with her. He was really worried. It can't be. It can't be. It's only circumstantial evidence, but... After she left us at the library, but before she made it to work, I think it's appropriate to consider her having disappeared during that time. Right after Shion ran away without me? It seems that you didn't know. Maybe if you had said something earlier, this would have gone more quickly. Now you understand, right? You're the only one left. You're the only survivor of the 4 who slipped into the ritual storehouse. It couldn't be. It just couldn't be. If something else happens, it would happen to you. I need you to understand that, Maibara-san. It can't be. It can't be. It can't be. Shion had already disappeared? That couldn't be. It couldn't be. I talked to her the day before yesterday. It was definitely her. I totally saw her. And it definitely wasn't someone with the same sounding voice. I talked to her last night. She was going to call me again today. That was Shion on the phone. Shion on the phone. It was from Shion. From Shion. Shion's long since disappeared. Next will be you. Then, who was on the phone those past nights? Who was on the phone those past nights? Who was on the phone those past nights? That's... Can't be! Whew. Depending on how this scene changes, I might end here or continue a bit more. Not too sure yet. Stretches. Yeah, this might be a good spot. Though I feel like chapter 12 will be long. I lay down on the couch and stay there dazed for a while. My mind was completely blank. I couldn't think about anything for more than a few seconds. There was a note in my house saying that Mom and Dad would be home late and I should have some ramen or something for dinner. I could make it whenever I got hungry, but I had no appetite, so I just stared blankly at the ceiling without eating anything. The hands of the clock were already pointing at 10. Would I get another phone call like that today? Even though Shion had already disappeared. Would she still call me? Where were they calling from, and who were they? The more I thought about it, the more I started to tremble. I even thought about just disconnecting the phone line. If I had been thinking a little less logically, I really would have done it too. Hold on, Keiichi Maibara. Oishi-san admitted it himself, didn't he? That Shion went missing a lot? Couldn't she have just gone to relatives that Oishi-san didn't know about and could have been there ever since? Shion and I were both being targeted by somebody, so it wouldn't be strange to think she went somewhere she usually didn't in order to hide. That must have been why Oishi-san couldn't locate her, and why he labeled her a disappearance. Yeah, that had to be it. Shion hadn't disappeared at all. Then my right hand moved of its own volition and slapped me on the cheek. Its cold sting let me calm down a little. Don't just convince yourself of the most convenient possibility, Keiichi Maibara. I knew I didn't want to admit that she had disappeared. Admitting it would mean that something terrifying was definitely happening. I just needed to figure out whether Shion was on the phone or not. Would I ask her if she was actually Shion? That seemed like an incredibly absurd thing to do. Still, don't run from this, Keiichi. If the person on the other end still believed that I thought she was Shion, then that gave me a tiny advantage. Casually, completely casually, I would listen to what she had to say, and fend her off. I would tear the skin off that monster. A skinwalker. I gotta send that to someone who loves them. However, as the last survivor of the people who went into the storehouse that night, this was my duty to perform. Still, then who? Who would call me and pretend to be Shion? I may have only heard her over the phone, but her voice shouldn't be that easy to replicate. That was definitely Shion's voice. It sounded just like her. It could have only been Shion, or a skinwalker using her skin. There was someone, though, wasn't there? Someone who sounded just like Shion. Mion. Who else could have done this? At this point, seriously, after all this time, all those little things that didn't quite make sense about Mion until now overwhelmed my mind, like being questioned about sneaking into the ritual storehouse, and how she shook the ladder while spouting curses. Who else? Who else could have? Why though? Why would Mion? I thought back to the things about the Sonozaki family that I had heard from Uishi-san and Shion. Mion was always entangled in the incidents, in a position where she was omnipotent. Some of that information included things that Shion had told me after she disappeared. I madly scratched at my head. Courage. Give me the courage. Just a little bit of courage to pick up the phone. I know it will ring tonight. It would be so easy to run away. That, though, would be the same as making it easy for them to erase me. I cannot run. I must stand up and face it. After all, the next sacrifice would definitely be me. I was sure Shion would use tricky words to try and trap me. Be careful. Be careful. I'm scared. I'm scared. I'm scared. I don't want to do this. 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 And then the phone rings. At that point, it rang. The phone rang. I didn't know where the call was coming from. Shion had disappeared. Disappeared a long time ago. Disappeared the night after Watanagashi. Yet, until today, she had been calling me like nothing happened. Now again, tonight, the people that had disappeared, their corpses simply haven't been found. I really didn't think they were alive. So if it really was Shion on the other end, then did that mean she was calling me from another world? Of course, that couldn't be. A living being was calling me, pretending to be Shion. I should have spaced out these ringtones a bit longer. Shion was long gone, yet, as though she were alive and well. The phone continued its incessant ringing. I didn't want to pick up if I didn't have to. I had just concluded, though, that not doing so wouldn't solve anything. Then, what would I do after I answered it? Would I immediately declare she wasn't Shion and ask who she was? Alternatively, would I pretend I was still fooled and try to grab her by the tail? That would probably be the safest thing to do. What I was most afraid of was what the person on the phone would do when she realized I knew she wasn't Shion. However, as long as I continued to let her think I was fooled, she wouldn't do anything extreme, right? If I just make sure to be careful, then that should be the safest option. I've made up my mind. I'll answer the phone. Once I do that, I'll talk to her as if nothing happened. That wasn't all I'd do this time, though. I'd scope her out. Who was she? What was she thinking? And what was she after? Why was she doing this? Was she really the one who killed Tomitake-san and Takuma-san? What happened to the mayor? What happened to Rika-chan and Satoko? I reached out for the receiver, my arm trembling. There were too many things I wanted to know, too many things I wanted to ask. I was scared. I should start by picking up the phone. Pick it up, Keiichi. Pick it up, Keiichi. Hello? Oh, how relieved I would have been if it hadn't been a call from Shion. Ah, Kei-chan, it's me. It's Shion. My momentary convenient and above all fleeting prediction was ripped into 1,000 pieces. I couldn't help shaking at this point. Get ready for this. You took a long time to pick up. I thought you weren't home, and I was about to hang up. Sorry. I was just in the bath. Did your family not pick up for you? Could your parents be out right now, Kei-chan? I failed. I let her in on a fatal piece of information. That I was currently the only one at my house. Well, no, they're not really. Anyway. Have you heard? About Rika-chan and Satoko? No. What happened after that? Were they found? Nah. They weren't found. Kei-chan, please don't lose hope. If Uishi-san hadn't let me know, then I might have allowed myself to shed a tear or two at Shion's considerate words. Instead, now that it had come to this, I couldn't take her words at face value. This person on the other end of the receiver, the more perfect to Shion they were, the more my blood curdled in fear. Rika-chan and Satoko. They were kidnapped, weren't they? Yes. I don't think there's much doubt. Just how cruel and grave a meaning did those words hold? Their weight astonished me, and then a moment later, I was overcome with numbness and felt like I would pass out. I had asked if Rika-chan and Satoko had been kidnapped. Shion, in turn, had answered that there wasn't much doubt. That cruel meaning behind her words. Rika-chan and Satoko were... no, I'm sorry. About the mayor. What do you think happened after he was kidnapped? Do you think he's still alive? What happened to Rikichan and Satoko after they were kidnapped? That's what I wanted to ask, but I frantically caught myself. What if she had given that question, a terrifying response, in such a way to sound like it had nothing to do with her? I was scared of that, so I immediately brought up the mayor. That said, however much I talked about the mayor, I think he was killed. He? Hey, wait. That was quick. I think it must be really hard to kidnap someone and keep them like they are. As long as they're not hostages, it would be most practical to kill them once you are done with them. The world started to bend so much I almost lost my balance. The scenery in my eyes whirled round and round like the hands of a clock, and tried to swallow me whole from below. I frantically put a hand on the wall to support myself. A moment later, a severe nausea welled up within me. How was she saying such things so lightly? Killed him so readily? I mean... Wow, that's some music. I mean, what's a human life or two anyway? It's a horrible thing, but I think that's probably what happened. If the mayor was killed, then did that mean that the same had happened to Rikichan and Satoko? No, that couldn't. They weren't some random old man. It was Rikichan. It was Satoko. They couldn't kill them so readily. It's probably better to think that Rikichan and Satoko-chan ended up the same way. Those were the words I wanted to hear the least, and I fought them back with a scream of my own, even though it wouldn't change anything. I still couldn't help but scream. This time the tears flowed. I'd been confronted with the most horrific outcome that I'd been trying to avoid considering ever since last night, and I cried. There was no longer any doubt that it was my fault. I killed them. I killed Rikichan and Satoko. I succumbed to the weakness of my own heart and confessed everything to Rikichan. That's why they were killed. That meant I killed them. When Rikichan looked at me with those innocent eyes, if only I hadn't given in. Even my voice gave out, and yet I still cried. And cried. Kei-chan, please, just try and calm down. Rikichan and Satoko, they've been killed. We couldn't even find their remains. I would never be allowed to even apologize to their faces. If that was to be my punishment, then how brutal a punishment it was. I think Shion tried to comfort me, but I didn't hear any of it. What are you going to gain by doing that? They're definitely going to target you and me next. Please, I'm asking you, get a hold of yourself. Please. Please. Shion was shouting, imploring me with a voice that sounded like tears were in her eyes. However, I was coming to hate the sound of that voice more and more. This Shion killed them. I had no doubts that this person killed them. Why? 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 Why kidnap someone and then kill them? Screw curses. Are people's lives really that cheap? Erasing them and killing them without a second thought like this? You're right. You're absolutely right. It would take a demon. I felt like crushing the receiver in my hand. How long did this person plan on acting like it was someone else's problem? There was magma in the pit of my stomach, and it felt like it was going to erupt at any moment. Hey Shion, please tell me. Why did Hinamizawa start needing someone to die on the night of Watanagushi? That's why I'd like to know. The fighting over the dam project is already over and done with. Haven't enough people been cursed already? Why is it? Why? If there's a reason, then say it now. I was incoherent at this point. My emotions had broken through the dam inside of me, rushing forth, and I couldn't stop them. These were not simple questions. This was an interrogation. Shion herself hadn't realized it yet. It was just too funny. It was so funny that I couldn't stop crying. I understand how you feel, Kei-chan. I really do. The dam wars ended a long time ago, yet murders and disappearances keep happening every year under the guise of Oishiro-sama's curse. Why? Why is it happening? Some of them had nothing to do with this, and some of them didn't deserve to be cursed, so why? Why? That's why I'm asking you! I want to know that as much as anyone. Both our ragged breaths could be heard over the phone. Listen. Oishiro-sama's curse never existed. It's too unrealistic. Just like you said, someone in the village is using the grand name of Oyashiro-sama's curse as a justification for continuing these murders and disappearances every Watanagashi. They were cunning. They've been using the curse as a convenient tool and made a system where they would get rid of 2 enemies in the village every year. And this year, that system killed Takano-san and Tomitake-san. Then why wasn't that enough? Why did the mayor and Rikuchan and Satoko have to get killed too? I don't give a shit about the past. The only thing I care about is why Rikuchan and Satoko needed to be killed. Why is that? I didn't say a word to Satoko, you know. Why even her? Why? Silence fell between us. Shion didn't answer for a while. Kei-chan, please, stop being mean. Hick. A sob. Was Shion crying? I don't have any idea what's going on either. Everything changed when we went into the ritual star house that night. It was the same for me. As I listened to Shion's bitter weeping, I could feel my agitation subsiding. When I heard that Takano-san and Tomitake-san had been killed that night, I doubted my ears. Then I realized it instantly. I realized what sort of position I was in now. The 4 of us snuck in there. Kei-chan, you and I won't be so conveniently forgiven. When I thought about that, it made my chest so tight. It was so terrifying. You know that feeling, Kei-chan, don't you? There was nothing fake about her words. She'd even understood how I felt. That's why I confessed everything to old man Kimiyoshi. All of us entered the forbidden storehouse. It was just a little bit of fun. We knew we shouldn't have done it, but it really had just been for fun. It was only a bit of exploration, that was all. Takano-san and Tomitake-san, who went in with us, were killed shortly afterward. They met such miserable ends. Since that day, I've been living in fear of when I would be attacked. There was nobody except old man Kimiyoshi who would help me, so I asked him to save me. Old man Kimiyoshi, he wasn't mad. He smiled and said, if you're really sorry, Shion-chan, then you'd never be demoned away. He really did smile at me. He told me to leave it to him. Shion cried bitterly, recalling the beloved mayor's death. It was such a sad voice that none who heard it could prevent it from twisting their hearts. Again, did I let my emotions take over and go off at her? Shion was in the same situation as me. She should have been my one and only comrade. But it's not her. Thump, my heart pounded. My other self, deep within my mind, whispered to me, don't forget Keiichi Maibara. Don't forget about the mayor on the morning after Watanagashi. He was told of Takano-san and Tomitake's deaths over the phone and committed to a meeting that evening. He went to a hospital appointment. He didn't tell his family. He'd only made it back just in time for the meeting. He went straight to the assembly hall. That's what Uichi-san said. When did you let the mayor know? Huh? I'm sorry, Shion. It must seem like I'm kicking you while you're down, but... Shion, you told him, right? You told old man Kimiyoshi the mayor? Yes. Hey. When did you let him know? Yeah. I'd begun to get scared of saying it aloud after hearing her sad voice. I wasn't saying it was contradictory, though. Besides, if there was a contradiction, then I wanted Shion to explain it to me. Did you know that the mayor has a severe case of hemorrhoids and had gone to the hospital for treatment? Kei-chan? What does that have to do? Please, answer me. If you didn't know, then just say so. There was a momentary silence. Then, after stammering a few times, she replied, I knew that. He had hemorrhoids. It looked like sitting down was really hard for him. He was going to the hospital. You know which hospital, right? I'm sorry. I don't know that much, but... Kei-chan, what does that have to do with... Shion didn't know what hospital the mayor went to. That meant it was impossible for her to have gone all the way to the hospital to confess everything. Since she didn't know his destination, then she obviously couldn't have seen him on the train either. If there was any other chance for her to contact him, it would have been after he came to Hinamizawa. The train, however, had been delayed, and he only got back right after the meeting was about to start. He didn't have time. There wouldn't have been enough time for him to listen to Shion spill the beans. I want to ask you straight, Shion, when did you tell the mayor about everything? When and where? Your answer doesn't have to be precise, but please, give me one. Kei-chan, why are you asking that? Her sob pierced into my ears. I was taken by the illusion that I was bullying her. Even so, I'll say it. If I'm wrong, then please correct me. Please prove to me that you're the real Shion. It was impossible. The day the mayor disappeared, from dawn until he vanished, there was no opportunity for you to contact him. Eh? That that's The mayor left first thing in the morning for his examination at the university hospital all by himself, without telling anyone. Shion, you just said you don't know what hospital he went to, so you couldn't have contacted the mayor until he got back. Isn't that right? His train back was delayed by an accident, and he didn't return to his house until the meeting was about to start. So there was no time for you to have told him before the meeting started either. I heard Shion repeating her weak sobs. That sort of feminine voice automatically ripped into my heart. It was so painful for me to say it. Shion, did you go to the meeting too? Did you attend it and tell him there? If you didn't, then there wouldn't have been any time left. After the meeting was over, the mayor disappeared on his way home. Shion went to the meeting, didn't she? Did she or didn't she? That question was so simple to answer, but she didn't give me an immediate response. Actually, with the meeting you didn't even go to the part-time job you said you went to that day. I'll say it more directly. You haven't been seen since we were at the library together. Kei-chan, well, Shion Sonozaki disappeared the day after watching Higurashi. The other end fell silent as the grave. It was so quiet that it was like the phone cord had been cut. I couldn't sense anyone there. Oishi-san says you've been missing. Despite that, you've been calling me every night like this, haven't you? Shion's sobs were torturing me. Still, I'm pretty sure I haven't said anything wrong. Please, Shion. If something I said was wrong, please say so. Shion, I'm begging you. Shion, there's no way you could have seen the mayor, but if you did see him, if Shion ever did have the chance to meet with the mayor on that day, then that meant then you saw him after the meeting. In other words, it could have only been right before he disappeared, or else afterward. The eyes. Beep, beep, went the dial tone. I stood there dazed for a while until I realized she had hung up on me. Now what? Do we have another scene, or is it going to be the end of the chapter already? Oh, it's the end of the chapter, so I will read these 2 tips, and we'll stop for the day. Stretch. Chapter lengths vary way too much. The problem with twins. This is not limited to just Hinamizawa, but in Onigafuchi village especially, the 3 families detested giving birth to twins as successors. The long-term dictatorship built on the precarious balance of the 3 families must have feared collapsing under the weight of internal strife from things like family quarrels. According to the literature, if twins were born, then they had to be culled. With that, the very fact that both the Sonozaki family successor, Mion Sonozaki, and her twin Shion are alive is in itself deeply interesting. Perhaps the current leader Oryo is sympathetic? Of course, the twins were not cared for equally, and as the heir, Mion received special treatment. From what I heard, despite the 2 of them looking exactly the same on the outside, the talent lies solely with Mion. My own observations of the 2 of them don't leave me with that impression. Tradition dictates that the leader of the Sonozaki family is said to inherit a demon, and they tattoo a magnificent one onto his or her back. In accordance with the tradition, there is an extremely high possibility that Mion has such a tattoo on her back. From what I've heard, there is apparently a magnificent demon tattooed on Orio's back as well. Then, I wonder what sort of tattoo belongs to the heir, Mion. I really want to see her back. And I don't think the only chance would have been if she was in the Angel Mort costume or so on, which isn't possible, so. Reserved for the day, Suzu Mahjong Baller. Clatter clack. Hey, Kuro-chan, you're the last one here. All the youngsters are here already. No. Excuse me, miss. Oishi handed over a convenience store bag with a carton of cigarettes in it to the old lady who owned the mahjong parlor, and she shrewdly made herself scarce. She was used to this by now. Oishi-san, good work today. What were you all earnestly waiting for me? You could have just done three-player. Everyone sitting at the mahjong tables in the small parlor were Oishi's subordinates, but there were no tiles laid out anywhere. Everyone, I'd like to thank you for your days of investigation without sleep. Thank you. Let's go sama. Energetic responses filled the parlor. Already it had lost the atmosphere of a place of entertainment. The situation is not looking good. The chief appears to have backed down due to Congressman Sonozaki's threats. In the coming days, we'll hand off Takano's murders to the Gifu police and give the missing persons cases of the disappearance of the mayor and the others to the community division. That damn upstart chief. The veterans in the room cursed him. All of our requests for warrants were turned down as well. I've even been told by our section chief not to go anywhere near the Sonozaki house. We're certainly in a bind, that we are. Incidentally, it looks like I'll be getting orders soon to go to training at the Metropolitan Police Department starting next week. After that, I've even been told to take a paid vacation in Izu. Well, I suppose that ain't bad. He heard a few dry laughs. It wasn't anything to laugh about, but that was all they could do. This always happens, but incidents are a lot like locking your keys in the car. The keys you need to unlock the door are always locked inside. For cars, you call JAF and they'll probably open your door. For incidents, Kuma-chan, show the map. Kumatani flipped over the whiteboard. On the back was a map of the Sonozaki premises made with magnets. Now, I've been doing this job for a long time. I've got a lot of faith in my gut, but this could be the one time it was wrong, no? Anyone worried about their retirement money has until the count of 10 to get out of here. Oishi began to count to 10, and everyone counted along with him. It was their famous 10-count resolution. 9, 10. Ah, no one's leaving. None of you love your families too much, is that it? Everyone laughed uproariously, cheering things on. I want everyone to go over their materials. Memorize the locations and blind spots of all the security cameras. Kuma-chan, you'll stand by in the command car. If something happens, you'll switch with me and take over. Komiyama-kun will head up Infiltration Team A. Atsushi-kun will lead Team B. Observation teams will set up at points 1 through 8. Bonchi-kun, you're responsible for keeping a strict timetable. Control your rotation so HQ doesn't get wise. Now, the team on standby has the most important job, alright? If the section chief asks where I am, play dumb. I'll handle escorting our guest. I'll probably take him to the venue, so wait patiently, everyone. Wonderfield Cave, Keiichimabara, that is. From what I've seen, we're set for tomorrow or the day after in that regard. It'll be easy. And that's the end of that one. So all we have left is chapter 12 next week. I'll download chapter 3 and set it up, but I'm probably not going to have to start it next week. Just based on last time's chapter 12. I realize I don't have to rotate my saves as much because when you go back to the main menu and you go back to extras, I believe, you can do chapter skips, right? Yeah, chapter jump. There you are. Wait. The longer chapters actually have, like, these. Wow. I'm just going to do 9-2 just to see where that goes. I don't remember that too well, but oh well. Now I'm going to reload in a couple of seconds after that. More time had passed than I thought. Storehouse. Where is he going back from? I think he's going back from the police station and so on. Yep. And if you load, you go back to the beginning of the chapter number 9. After hanging up, oop, search for Rika's contact. There it is. Wait, that's the wrong chapter, isn't it? Save and load. End of chapter 9. No, I want end of chapter 8. Yep. End of chapter 9 means that was the end of the festival. So then he comes back. People are hungover and so on. Then later on, he gets called in. Alright, that's it for today. My next stream will be Tuesday evening at 7 p.m. EST, where I will be playing more Hi-Fi Rush, where I fail to parry anything. Y'all have a good rest of your day, evening, morning, wherever you are. Bye-bye.